I think there's a big problem with people no longer being bored and thus having discomfort motivating
Yes.
creativity. So what's going to happen in the next few years? I mean, there's a divide. I think, I don't know. I read somewhere that, I don't know if it was, what's his name? It's Bill Gates, the IBM guy, right? Bill Gates.
Bill Gates is Microsoft.
That's right, Microsoft.
Yeah.
But that he doesn't or didn't allow, and I might have the wrong guy, but that
Yeah.
he didn't allow his children to have technology up to a certain age. And that doesn't mean never. It just means no phones, no iPads. Go be bored. Go be creative, and let that. Because if you just stick a baby in front of an iPad, they're never gonna. I mean, and then that's just their life from then on, is staring at a screen. I think that's. We could talk about COVID delays in learning and social interaction and whatnot, but also the technological stunting of brain development through passive entertainment. There's no time to be bored. Greetings, friends, and welcome back to another episode of Dreamscapes. Today, our guest dreamer is Angie Hawkins. She is an inner glow coach, a public speaker, and the author of Running in Slippers, a memoir about dropping social masks and social media facades to connect through vulnerability. Yes, I had to read that because my brain is Swiss cheese and I can't remember anything. You can find her at runninginslippers.com, link in the description. Of course, for my part, would you kindly like, share, and subscribe? Always need more volunteer dreamers. You can see I don't have a new episode every week because dreams come in their own time, but I want to hear from you. You don't have to be an author or public speaker. You can be a normal human being who has dreams, because most of us do. Oh, wow. What was I going to say? I'm going to leave this in too, because confusion is also
That's okay. I'm all about
is also part of being human.
I'm all about real and raw and dropping the mask.
Doesn't get any more real than me just being a complete brain fart. What was I going to say? What do I say? Oh, I play video games Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. Pacific, most days of the week. This episode brought to you in part by, right over there, ABC Book 13, Dream Psychology. And actually, I did a smart thing this time. I put it up on the screen. It is Maurice Nicole's 1920 work, blending his psychiatric training with the theories of Carl Jung in light of burgeoning interest in Eastern mystic traditions. So you're going to want to check that out. It's a book's about 228 pages, 28 footnotes, some by the original author, some by yours truly, the editor and recreator of this historical work. So, of course, you can find all this and more at BenjaminTheDreamWizard.com, including downloadable MP3s of this very podcast, so that you may take the wizard with you wherever you wander, with or without Wi-Fi. Last but not least, if you would head on over to BenjaminTheDreamWizard.locals.com, it's free to join, attached to my Rumble account, one of the best ways to get in contact with me. So that is more than enough out of me. Back to Angie. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, Benjamin.
Yeah, we were already having a good chat before we officially started the show. So that is actually a pretty good segue straight into your book, of the idea of, was it specifically your experience during the COVID years, or that led you to examine the nature of social masks and social media facades?
I actually had the idea before COVID. Interestingly enough, I think it was exacerbated with COVID, but it's a memoir, and it covers this total train wreck period of my life, and it's extremely vulnerable. And the reason I wrote it that way is because I was just frustrated, not only with social media, because, we put on this like edited and filtered persona of what we want other people to think we are. And so we're not really showing who we are, or like the difficult things we're going through. Because the truth is, we all go through hard things. But also in real life, if someone asks you how you're doing, even if you're having a shitty day, you're like, oh yeah, everything's fine. And so I was just getting frustrated with, like, why aren't we talking about things? Because we all go through hard things. And I think when you're going through them thinking that everyone is on Instagram going on vacation and having a great time, or in real life everyone's fine, you feel so alone in your experience. So the entire goal of the book is connection through vulnerability, because I think when you actually talk about the hard things in life, it's relatable and it's easier to connect with people that way.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, we've got a big, I would say, evolutionary problem with mass media and social media specifically. If we posit, and this is the most recent estimate, that the human species as such has existed for, some people have said 100,000 years. I think it's closer to 350 or more thousand years. And for all that time, we existed in relatively small tribal groups. The advent of civilization gathering in large cities was a relatively recent invention that could go back 10 to 25,000 years. I mean, that I may be under or overestimating that, but that was one big social change that now we got to get used to. Not our 50 or 100 small group tribe. We got to deal with thousands. And then how do we do that? And there's been a part of the great tradition of literature has partly been, hey, here's all the problems you get when there's too many people around, and you got to deal with that. So that's one thing, then you get the storytelling around those things. But it wasn't until, books, collecting stories was a major revolution away from oral history traditions. So that was also something that we're, I think, still struggling to adapt to. What do you do with a story told by someone else, a fictional story, but also true stories of adventure and not just adventure, but true stories of travel and experience of other cultures. But then we've got radio, and then we kind of went back to it in an oral thing, and then we were sitting around the radio, so it was almost like a living room campfire situation, and then that transformed into TV. And there's actually I've seen cartoons in the past where it's like then and now, and it's then was sitting around a campfire staring at the fire, now it's sitting around the television staring at the electronic fire, and that has, on top of that now, 100 years later or so, we've got this social media thing, which to bring it all back. If I can't do the weave, I got dementia, right? That's what they say. To bring it back to what you're saying, that now we have the culmination in some ways of all of that good parts version of life. And now it's social media thing. So it's not just seeing your neighbor and wanting to keep up with the Joneses. You're trying to keep up with someone in a completely different country or social class or whatever it is. And I want what they have, and I wish my life was as good as theirs. And you don't see the boring parts. I mean, that's something we were talking about earlier too. The idea of is kids have, with this constant access to technology and fast edit, short form content, attention, ability to pay attention is at a deficit, but also constantly bombarded with, I wish my life was as good as theirs. We feel inadequate by that comparison, but we don't see the boring parts because they edit it out. Why would you show people that, right?
Yeah, well, and that's just it, because I am actually from Chicago, and when I moved to Hawaii, a lot of people because you have friends who you don't talk to all of the time. Mm-hmm. So I had lived here for like a year, and I had been posting things about living here. And I remember maybe like a year and a half into living here, I was talking to one of my friends on the phone, and he thought I moved here to retire. And I was like, okay, I see why he would think that, because I'm posting pictures of me hiking and doing things. But at the time I worked in finance, so it's like I wasn't posting pictures of me working on a spreadsheet because that's boring. And I wasn't even trying to intentionally edit my life in a certain way. It was just me posting fun pictures, and I had unintentionally, because he wasn't the only person who thought that, so I had unintentionally made that narrative on Instagram. Yeah,
there are crafted and curated people that intentionally. I mean, anyone who's set up a shot and they're going, oh, look at this, like they just discovered it. No, you found it, went home, got the camera, brought it out, set up the tripod, and then pretended you were seeing it for the first time. I'm like, that is so many layers of who's that guy? Was it Baudrillard, the simulation and simulacra guy? We've got now the simulation of a simulation of a simulation of life. So many layers removed. But honestly, also is we want to share the things we're excited about. And who thinks to grab a camera about something they don't care about? Does look at this thing I don't want to show you because I don't care about it? No, I just don't take the picture. But imagine, and then you saw me suddenly have a smirk and a little chuckle to myself, because I imagine you're working on a spreadsheet and you're looking at the camera, you're doing the thing, it's like, living the dream.
Right. You just gave me an idea, though. Yeah. I should put together a reel of all the boring, just of one day, everything I do. This is actually my real life.
Yeah. No, and you know what? You could actually start a trend with that. I mean, that might catch on.
I think I'm going to do that.
It'll become the new big thing of like, because there's fads and trends, and it's usually there's people. What is it? We're always seeking novelty. I mean, that's God, and this goes back to the whole human evolutionary thing as well. Of like, we're programmed to seek novelty because for a lot of reasons, but one of them is you got to get out and look what's around you so you can find the things you need to survive. So if you weren't curious, if you didn't want to see what's over the next hill, maybe there's something I need. But then that gets, it's weird to say it gets hacked and exploited because it's natural and there's a good part to it. And it's like, what am I trying to say? I'm going all over the place here today.
Yeah, I'm like kind of following you though, because I feel like we still have evolutionary traits, but they're getting distorted by technology.
Yeah. No, absolutely. That's what I'm saying. It's like it's a fool's errand to try and deprogram humans. We're not going to re-engineer the human animal in my lifetime. And that's actually the history of the 20th century was people who got the idea in their head that they could have, scientific methods of reshaping the human to perfect the human animal. I'm like, that's a recipe for genocide on a scale we only saw last century and hopefully never again. So it's one of those things where it's like, okay, how do we work with what's natural and still aim for what's best or better? How do we pull out the best of what's naturally in us and, not exactly repress, but what was Freud had a term for it, that sublimate. We want to take our negative impulses and sublimate them into positive social expressions. So that's where we get the, I wish I had a better example, but this works is like marriage came around because we saw that humans have this innate drive to reproduce, and there's better and worse ways to create offspring. And one of the worst ways is to have a bunch of offspring you don't take care of because then they die. That's horrible. Mm-hmm. But so we want to put it in a constraint, a context where, okay, pick one, work with her, take care of your kids, stable. And then we got I think the root of society or civilization itself is that pair bond between two people that are raising their own kid. Maybe that's a rather conservative view, but that's what I think. So, but then it also takes all that freaky stuff that you want to do, and it's like the saying is there's no sin in the marriage bed. Now, you can sin, you can kill people. It's not literally, but the idea you can get freaky as you want with your wife. No problem. Maybe just don't do it with 60 other people because then there's problems. So that's kind of the idea of, and it's a bad example because that's controversial. Some people say, oh, marriage is passé, or they say polygamy is better, or open marriage, but whatever. I'm not trying to get political on that, but just the idea of taking natural, we sublimate our urge to fight and compete. We put it in sports. We put it in economics. And these are good things. You got to kind of work with human nature. What I say is you don't want to row against the current without a damn good reason. So if there's a current of human nature, sometimes you got to row against it. Sure, you went too far, you missed the pier, you go back and what. But usually you want to maximize that harmony and efficiency and row with the current takes you further. This is my little analogy. I'll stop there. I rambled on a bunch. I'm sure you have something to say.
No, I think this is all very interesting. I haven't really thought of social media in terms of human evolution, but you bring up amazing points. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
But I think it's going to play a huge part in how we evolve going forward too.
For sure. You were mentioning it hijacks and exploits what is natural, but then it also works with it in some ways. So I don't know if that's where you're going.
No, but on that note, there are good aspects. I was just talking to someone the other day. TikTok is 90% junk, but there is 10% educational good stuff. But then you get addicted to the scroll because you're searching for that 10%.
Oh yeah.
And I tell myself this lie that, I'm just going to relax and go on Instagram or TikTok, but it's not relaxing because my brain is looking for that dopamine hit for that 10% that's not junk.
For sure. And then you get people like me where my relaxation time is I put on a podcast, but then I put it in the background and I go on Twitter. and I argue with people and post my thoughts. And a lot of times I've been trying to do this more often. It's like, okay, let's really focus on what I'm listening to and post comments about that content. What does this make me think? I'm not doing it near enough. But I get addicted to that scroll too, in terms of like, there's always something more. And when there's not, you hit the bottom of the page, you refresh. Oh, look at that.
Yes.
In the last hour that I was scrolling, more people posted stuff. What am I looking for? I don't know. Entertainment. I just don't want to get up. I'm comfortable in my favorite chair. I'm relaxed. I'm like, oh, I should go to bed. I mean, 5 more minutes. And then so that's self-control type of thing too. It's really hard. I wouldn't want someone to impose control on me, but I also have to realize some of my habits are not healthy and I should change them. So I guess admitting there's a problem is the first step.
Yes.
So, yeah. Well, how does this broader discussion relate to what you put in the book? I mean, I don't know if you want to talk about how it impacted you and the thoughts you had at the time.
Well, like for me, how it really came to light was in well, first of all, I could talk all day about from childhood up into adulthood, all the trauma and everything I went through. But the contrast between real life and social media really was reflected back to me in 2017 because my boyfriend broke up with me and then my dad died. So
wow.
I was just like thrusted into like the worst grief I had ever been in my entire life. And we live in a just get over it society. So after a few months, people just expected me to be okay, and I wasn't okay. So I thought something was wrong with me. And nowadays, like I see on Instagram, there are accounts about grief or whatever, and I do see more discussions about grief. But in 2017, that was not a thing at all. And this was back when Instagram was like just pictures. So people would like just be posting their happy pictures. And I thought something was wrong with me for just like being depressed and sad for so long. And so that was when it was really highlighted to me. It's like, I thought nobody else was going through this. And then Instagram started evolving and conversations started evolving to include grief. And I was like, why weren't we talking about this several years ago when I was going through it? And that's when I realized everyone goes through shitty things. We're just not talking about it. So that where the inspiration of the book came about.
For sure. And you just reminded me why I went off on that tangent of novelty seeking.
Oh, yeah.
So we do actually have trends where everything old is new again in that sense.
Yeah.
It would just like in fashion, bell bottoms, they're back. Except the 21st century is really weird. We've almost stopped progressing culturally in some ways. Like we no longer seem to have eras. They're all mashed together. It's like all of history is happening now in some ways. Okay, that's another tangent, but
yeah.
but the idea that we'll have periods of time where people go, oh, no one's talking about grief. And then bam, everyone talks about grief, but it has an arc and then it fades and they're like, okay, let's talk about the next thing. It gets,
you're right.
Because we're always looking for, people hit a saturation point where they're like, I've had enough grief stories. That's no longer novel. It's no longer interesting to me. And so they move on. So it's like how to, I honestly don't know. I hesitate to attempt to construct anything. I want to critique. I want to observe. I want to give my 2 cents in a way that I hope is useful. But I don't want to tell people, here's what you should do. You should have 5 minutes a day of grief. That's not how any of this works. You can't do that. You can't do that. But no, you got hit with a double whammy, and that is really hard for people. I mean, you lost 2 strong male influences in your life at the same time. I mean, I don't know if you want to say a little bit about how you got through it, or was it white knuckle? Was it leaning on certain supports? Was it moving to Hawaii? Sometimes people do that. They're like, my life is over here. I'll go start a new life somewhere else.
Yeah. So unfortunately, I wish I could like say like, oh yeah, I like had this awakening and everything was fine. This was at a point in my life, I was still looking for answers outside of myself. And actually moving to Hawaii was part of it because I was like, maybe if I go somewhere and start over. And in all fairness, it was in this attempt I was actually seeking happiness. So it's like the intention was there. I was looking to be happier, but I think it was ill-placed because it should have been more seeking inside of myself. And so like I moved here, and the reality of living here is much different than coming on vacation here, which I was aware of because I had a friend who lived here for a long time. So I was aware of some of the things, but there were so many things that I was not aware of. For instance, I moved here in 2018 and I kept my job when I moved. So this was way before, not way before, it was like a few years before remote working was the trendy thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
So that in itself was very difficult. And compounded on that was there was like this huge management shakeup at work that threatened my role. So the first year that I lived here, I lived in constant fear of getting laid off. And again, this was at a time where remote work was not the trendy thing to do. So I was like, what am I going to do if I lose my job? I felt like that would have been like the end. And then it was extremely difficult to make new friends here because there's still a lot of resentment from the locals about being overtaken by the United States. So they're very resentful of white people coming in and moving here. Also, a lot of people who come here are very transient. And so I understand this aspect of it now, because if someone is new to the island, you don't really want to make friends with them because they'll probably just move in a year. So it's kind of like, why take the time to make friends with someone? But I didn't understand that when I first moved here. So it was extremely difficult to make new friends. I was in fear of losing my job. To prove my dedication to moving here, I was like, I'm going to buy a new condo immediately to prove that I'm all in and that I'm committed to this move. So I bought a new condo. And then a month after I moved in, it completely flooded because a shared building pipe backflowed into my bathroom and I was not home.
Oh.
So, and that would be stressful at
Talk
any
about a
time,
shitstorm.
right? Yeah, that would have been stressful, like even if I had lived here for like 5 years.
Oh, yeah.
But like I was brand new, all this other stuff was going on. What else happened? My grandma died. I actually did end up making a few friends. One of them ended up being extremely toxic. So I had to like let that go, which was hard because, first of all, it's hard breaking up with friends, period. But it was at a time that I didn't really have any other friends. What else happened? Yeah, it was like this whole thing. And then COVID happened. And COVID happened at a time where I had just started making friends. So then COVID happens and it's like, oh, now you can't hang out with anybody all over again. And the beaches were closed, the parks were closed. And it was just kind of like, what is the point of living in Hawaii if you can't even go to the beach? Because all I could basically do was like take a walk on the sidewalk in a neighborhood. That was like the only legal thing to do, except the state didn't have jurisdiction over the ocean. So the ocean was open. So I was like, I'm going to learn how to surf. But even that backfired because I had taken a surfing lesson before with this guy and everything was closed. But I texted him because I was pretty confident that he would be willing to give me underground surfing lessons during the lockdown. And I was correct. And he was married and his wife was originally from New Zealand and she had moved back to New Zealand. And when we had our first few lessons, the reason he told me was because in New Zealand, health insurance is basically free. So she was moving back there in case anything happened. And that all seemed to make sense. But then as we started surfing together more, we became more friendly. And he confided in me that they were actually separating. And when she came back, that they were splitting up. So then our relationship turned romantic. And keep in mind, this is COVID. So he was the only person I was hanging out with, and we were hanging out every single day. So I was like 100% emotionally invested in him, more so than I would have been with anyone in any other circumstance. Well, so then his wife finally came back, and then he told me that they had to be married on paper for 2 more years so that she could get her green card. And that was just like so devastating. And honestly, it was just the straw that broke the camel's back because this is like 3 years. So 2017 is when my boyfriend broke up with me and my dad died. And it was just constant, all this shit happening to me. And I just got that whole breakup was just the straw that broke the camel's back. And I actually attempted to end my own life because
I
I
was going to say, I'd be
literally,
surprised if you didn't at least have
yeah,
the thought. Yeah.
because like you, as a human being, you can just really only take so much. And it was so unrelenting for so long.
Oh, yeah.
And I actually consider myself a strong person, but I was just like, I cannot do this. And so,
Well, you are
and that's
still
in the,
alive. That's pretty
yeah.
strong. That's pretty strong.
And honestly, it's a miracle because I feel like I always pronounce it wrong. It's called clonazepam, I
Mm-hmm.
think. So I had an entire bottle of that because I took it for my anxiety, but I would only take a half pill at a time. Like I would take a half pill before I went to bed because it was so strong, it would knock me out for 8 hours straight.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I was convinced if I take an entire bottle of like 30 pills, I was like, this will do me in.
And
I
pretty
was
much you just woke up the next day?
no, I
No?
was unconscious in my shower for a day and a half.
Wow.
Somehow I managed to text a friend who took me to the hospital, and I was in the hospital for a day and a half. And anyway, so I get out of the hospital and I called a friend because when I got out of the hospital, like I had all these missing texts, and one of my friends was like concerned about me because I wasn't responding. So I call her and I told her about what happened. And I was like, I cannot believe I didn't die because it was
Yeah.
truly a lethal dose. And her response was, it's not your time. So in that moment, I was like, okay, like I'm extremely lucky because most people don't get second chances at life. And here I am. And then I was like, there's a reason why I'm here. I need to figure that out. And so that's why I wrote my book, because I had this loose idea about it before and I had kind of written pieces, but I was so terrified of like putting myself out there. I was like, no, I cannot write this book because I'm too afraid to be seen.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I just felt in my heart and soul like this is part of my purpose and I don't know how or why, but I'm just going to do it. So that's why I wrote the
Sure.
book.
It's a pretty strong sign from the universe, so to speak, is like,
Yeah.
well, you didn't die. Maybe you should write that book.
Yeah.
And the funny thing, okay, two thoughts. One recent, we'll work backwards. A lot of people, I would say most people would say they would rather have a physical, painful injury than experience public embarrassment. You know, if you had like choose
Yeah,
one
and
or
I
the
would
other.
agree with that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I
'cause
think
it
I
just
would rather
hurts.
like break my leg. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I've never had a broken leg, but I can imagine that. I've twisted an ankle and it was pretty bad. That kind of thing. But the other, excuse me, the other thing I was gonna say is you kind of hit the human stress trifecta in a way, and I think if you look at the research on what people rank as the most stressful events in their life, the beginning or end of a relationship, like a wedding, that kind of
Yeah.
thing, or just or a breakup, the death of a relative, especially a parent, and moving. And you did all three, and you kind of followed. So if I were to I am not a doctor. Consult your local psychologist, but I would say if you had the death of a relative and a breakup recently, I would not recommend moving also.
Agree.
Yeah.
I did it and I do not recommend it.
Now, there's a certain logic to it. It's like, look, my life here is over. Whatever I thought I was doing, and I need a radical change to maybe jumpstart something new. Let's use this as a jumping off point for a new grand adventure. It makes sense, but then it is also adding another layer of stress, and then to have social isolation dumped on you, and then and the environment you came to being so difficult to form new connections. I mean, I would be, as I was saying, I would be surprised if you didn't at least, as a result of all those things, have the thought of, fuck this, life isn't working. I'm just going to leave and not deal with any of this. But then, to actually follow through on it is the next level, but also understandable. One thing I like to, and I haven't said this in a long time, is I like to let people know that, it's not, what is it? The algorithm wants you to say self-deletion is not an illogical conclusion, but it's a valid conclusion based on a faulty premise, is one of those things. So if we accept the fact that the pain you're in currently is not only intolerable, but will never stop, stopping it through self-deletion is a reasonable alternative logically. And we can see that, let's say someone is trapped under a pile of rubble and they're in horrible pain, and they're not going to be found ever. They're just going to suffer until they die. At that moment, most people would say, look, if you had the option to just end the suffering because you're not getting out of this, most people are going to say that's understandable. But that's an extreme example. That's like a thought experiment type of thing. The faulty premise that most people succumb to with depression is, and that's like depression is a liar. It tells you this is never going to get better. That's what it feels like. That's an honest feeling, but it's not necessarily a foregone conclusion. There's a lot of things that can and probably will change. That's when I was working inpatient psychiatric. I said, it's okay if you feel hopeless. I'm here to hope for you until you can hope for yourself.
Yeah, I really wish I had someone to say that, because even part of my hospital stay was the psych ward, and they basically just treated me like a caged animal. It's like,
yeah.
And that actually added to my trauma, to be honest. But going back to your point, the reason I openly talk about it, because I know it's like a taboo subject, and to your point, you can't even use the S word on a lot of outlets because you'll get censored. But
Unfortunate.
Yeah, I talk about it openly because I think there's a lot of misconceptions about it. One is that it's selfish, but it's like when you're in that state of pure hopelessness, and I like how you translate it to physical pain, because if you were in such extreme physical pain and someone put a gun in your hand, would that be considered selfish to end that physical pain? I don't think a lot of people would consider it selfish, but when you're in that severe emotional pain, people call it selfish. And I don't think they're really looking at it from that person's point of view. So I like to point that out. You're just so consumed in your own pain, you're not even thinking about anyone else.
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, my friend who took me to the hospital, after I got out, we ended up having an in-person conversation, and she started crying because she was actually very smart. I was blacked out, so I don't remember any of this, but when she picked me up to take me to the hospital, she grabbed the pill bottle out of the trash can so that she could show the hospital what I had taken. So as a result, she knew what I took, and after she dropped me off, she went home and was Googling about it, and again, it's extremely strong, and she was convinced that I was going to die, and so she started crying, and she was like, I thought you were going to die. And again, this is a week after I got out of the hospital. And that was the first moment of oh shit, even at that point, a week later, that was the first moment I was like, oh, I didn't realize how much it would hurt other people because I was just so consumed in my own pain.
Oh yeah. Or you're like, well, they'll get over it or they'll be better off without me. There's a whole lot of thoughts in there.
Yeah. I didn't think anyone would I didn't even think she would care that much. Cause again, I think we went an entire week because I can't even describe how I felt when I got out of the hospital. The best way to describe it would be, it felt like I was walking around without skin because every little thing was jarring. And my only goal was to survive the day. So it took me a week to even be able to have a conversation with her because I was I just need to get grounded.
Oh yeah, definitely. And if I may be misremembering, and I am not a doctor, this is not medical advice. I think it is actually pretty hard to overdose on anxiolytics is the category, I think, but there's another word for it. Ativan, Klonopin, a lot Xanax. Something about those particular medications is they are very sedating, but you hit I may have the science wrong. It's you can overdose on you can overdose on Tylenol easier than that. You can overdose on opioids
really?
Easier than the anti-anxiety medications of that particular kind. There's a word for it. There's a word for the.
I'll have to look it up.
Yeah, I can't remember either. Feel free. But now, like I said, there's not a recommendation, but it's actually you're lucky that you chose that medication because it was less likely to kill you. And again, it may have been a little luck of the universe type of thing that you didn't have something more effective like Tylenol. Right. It's easier to overdose on that because it just overwhelms and literally kills your liver, and then from that moment on you are in liver failure and to death unless they can fix it up. I remember taking care of one dark humor in the psychiatric business. We had a frequent flyer, a person who came in fairly often, and that was their suicide attempt of choice, and they did it enough times that they were in liver failure and had to go for what is it when they cycle your blood? Damn, I can't
Like
words
transfusion.
today. Well, they put it through dialysis. There we go.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. They put it through a machine, and the machine performs the function of the liver to put the blood back in. And you got to do that once, twice a week or something like that. So that person had hit that point where probably, it's less that you die from the overdose itself, but from the organ killing effect. I had a whole point there. I guess that was it. So that you're kind of lucky on that.
That's interesting though, because
yeah.
I didn't realize like it was just so strong. I thought for sure like it would kill me. But to your point, I think it just put me in a coma basically.
Yeah. And that's actually how they do kind of. Now they don't use a whole bottle and just throw it down your throat. But in a hospital, let's say you have brain swelling and they need to put you into a medically induced coma. They basically just sedate you to the point where you just sleep. You just sleep the whole time and let the brain swelling go down and all that kind of stuff. But, I think even under those conditions, that's why the EMTs will do sternal rubs. I mean, they pick a painful part of the body to inflict pain to try and get you to wake up, because mostly that'll come through. So you probably don't want just a sedative like that and then brain surgery or something, because you'll feel the drilling and you'll wake up. Right? I can guarantee it. But anyway, so that was another kind of perhaps fortunate thing to do. Yeah. But I think it's a good thing. I think I talk to a lot of folks who have memoir-ish type stuff. They're trying to tell their story, and I wanted to bring it back around to connect it specifically to dropping social masks and social media facades, and how your experience influenced that, coming to that conclusion that we need to be more vulnerable and real with people. What was your thought process on that?
Well, just the fact that, again, so it was highlighted to me in 2017 during my profound period of grief, but then especially after 2020, it was even more highlighted because like I had never really heard of anyone talking about attempting suicide because first of all, most people are successful, and most people who, like me, who have attempted and survived, they're not really talking about it. The only person I had ever heard of, there was a guy who survived jumping off the Golden Gate Bridge.
Yeah.
Do you know who I'm talking about? Like, he was the only person I had heard of.
I think he's the guy who had the famous line of like, the moment my foot left the bridge, I changed my mind and it was too late.
Yeah, I think I saw a documentary. I think there's only like 2 survivors that they could find, and they both said the same thing.
Yeah.
Like they regretted
it. I realized
and
all my problems in life could be solved except this one right now. Yeah.
What was I saying? Oh, but again, like nobody was talking about it. So I was like, let's talk about this. And it's crazy because whether it's on a podcast or someone I know, the more I talk about it, the more I've had people tell me like I've had ideation or I've had those thoughts. Like nobody has gotten to the point where they have wanted to carry through with it. But just even getting to the point where you start thinking about it, like that's serious. That means you're in a dark spot mentally.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't think we leave a lot of space for people to talk about that. And going back to your point about physical pain, I think that's just as serious as being in physical pain. It's just
Absolutely.
You don't see it as the problem. Because if you see someone on crutches, you would probably ask them if they're okay. But if you see someone who's sad, you don't necessarily ask them that. Or even, I don't even say worse, but the most depressed people are actually like smiling and laughing. And we definitely don't ask those people if they're okay.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple of things there that I think are important to know, and I'll work backwards too. Let me, hold on. So there's an interesting phenomenon where you might notice that someone is sad and withdrawn a little bit and doesn't seem to be doing so well. And I'm doing a little downward arc here. And then all of a sudden it turns around and they perk right up and they're happy. And then they start offering you things. Hey, do you want this old stereo I've got? It's because they've made the decision. I'm going to go through with it. Hey, I'm relieved. There's an end to the pain. I feel great. And then that's a prelude. So there's kind of a pattern to watch for there. And that's one of the components of depression is a lack of motivation, even a lack of motivation to follow through with the suicide plan until you hit that. And this is also like if someone goes to therapy, they go, counseling or whatnot, they get on a medication that works for them. They have certain life changes that might improve their situation a little bit. And suddenly they've got just enough motivation. It's the most dangerous part of recovery. Suddenly they've got enough motivation to act on those thoughts. And the next time one occurs, now they're not too depressed to act on it, which is there's like that little window of extreme risk, which is also part of why some of the SSRIs get a bad name, is because, there's a warning on there. It says may increase thoughts of suicide. No, may give you enough good feeling, may move you towards normal just enough that you have the energy and motivation to follow through on something you were too depressed to do just a week ago. So there's a bit of that going on in there. But I don't know. That's
interesting though. Yeah, because you definitely have to be I can't even describe the mental state, because this is another misconception. People call people who commit suicide cowards.
Right.
It actually takes an extreme amount of courage. That's one of the scariest things I ever did, to like take my own mortality into my own hands. It was terrifying.
Yeah. There's a lot of things. We could say normies. That's one way to characterize it. People who have not had the experience and they're trying to understand it from the outside. They look at it as, selfish, cowardly. And there's a lot of social stigma attached to it from the idea of prevention. It's like, hey, if we stigmatize this, if we make it taboo to do it or even talk about it, then we can prevent it. It's again a yin yang thing. It does a little bit and it doesn't. So is that the best approach? Maybe for some people. But I was gonna just before I forget again. That's why I write things down. The physical pain, emotional pain thing. There's a whole phenomenon with certain types, specifically borderline personality disorder folks who have such a painful emotional dysregulation that's why they do the cutting. Now, it's not an actual suicide attempt. It's I am drawing blood and making a physical pain so that it lessens the emotional pain. People actually do physical harm to themselves because of emotional pain as an escape from it. So it makes sense that, there's very little, what am I trying to say? People who are motivated and in pursuit of meaning in their life are able to tolerate amazingly physically painful things, but people who have no motivation or meaning, pursuit of meaning in their life because they're so depressed, that emotional pain becomes intolerable to live in. It's just the deepest, darkest thing you've ever. Anyone out there who's never experienced depression, you believe you will suffer horribly forever until you die, and so you might as well speed it up. That's the mentality. You can probably confirm.
Yeah, and I hate when people use depression and sadness interchangeably.
Yeah.
Because recently I was reading something on Instagram. It was like, it was talking about how a lot of the famous artists like Van Gogh and whoever were actually depressed. And so she was relating that to like, so if you feel depressed, just go do something creative and it'll make you feel better. And I'm like, I think you're actually just talking about sadness.
He still cut off his ear.
Yeah. And so I'm like, I don't think she really understands what depression is, because when you're depressed, it's all consuming.
Yeah, it's everywhere and everything. And it's not something you can just kind of white knuckle through sometimes, because it's not the same as other types of injuries or pain. Very much so. It destroys that ability to feel the accomplishment of meaningful purpose. It just robs you entirely of that. It gives you that's why I say depression is a liar. It just gives you a completely false view of the world, distorted. I was going to say something about depression. Depression and sadness. So what is the difference actually? They are different. Depression is this all goes to as well, like explaining to folks kind of what a psychological diagnosis is and what it is not. If you have cancer, they can do a scope or they got MRI or whatever. Hey, look at that nugget. That's not supposed to be there. Let's cut that out. You have a physical thing. You can see it with your eyes. You can touch it with your hands. Not so with mental health stuff. It's all state of mind, which is completely immaterial. So how do we know we have a diagnosis? So if I were to say, and I am looking for an answer, not just rhetorical, but there's an object. It has a long trunk covered in bark. It has branches and leaves, lives on sunlight and air and minerals from the ground. You would say it is
A tree.
a tree. And that is how we do psychological diagnosis of things like depression or schizophrenia. So if we go schizophrenia, it's like if a person hears voices when there's no one in the room and they tell them to do things that they don't want to do, and they feel compelled to obey, and they isolate, and they're so distracted they have a difficulty answering questions. You add up all these little things and eventually you got a tree. Well, that's schizophrenia. That's what we're looking at there. So the same thing with depression. I use an analogy to help understand some of these things. The idea that if you have fear because you're being chased by someone who says, I'm going to kill you, you're not paranoid. You have legitimate fear. Now, if you have fear that you're going to be killed and there's no threat, you're all alone in a very secure location and you're just terrified, that is fear out of proportion to actual danger. A matter of degree, we call that paranoia. You're not and I love that joke. Just because you're paranoid doesn't mean they aren't trying to kill you. So I think a dark humor in psychology. But all of that to say, it's the same with depression versus sadness. Everyone is sad once in a while. Oh, my favorite sports team lost. Oh, I wanted to go see that movie, but I got an appointment. I'll do it tomorrow or whatever. We put things off. There's, I had to let go of a pet. I loved them for 20 years. Deep sadness, but you generally come out of it. It's like it's a matter of degree. There's normal and there's abnormal. And so with the depression, they would say it's periods of there's a bunch of different things, but one of them is anhedonia, the inability to experience pleasure, and it isn't just physical. Like you can eat a tasty steak, but it doesn't taste as good. You can listen to your favorite song, and instead of making you want to get up and dance, you just sit and cry. I mean, it's a totally different response to things. Now, you get enough of those things in one place at one time over a long enough period of time, bam, major depression. And grief can do it too. And you get, some people get I think it's called complicated grief, where the death of a loved one, more than just being tremendously sad, it sends you into a depression where now you don't enjoy your favorite food. You're not getting any pleasure from daily activities. You're in such distress that, you start getting thoughts of suicide. And, I just said it. So anyway, I think you can get away with once. Sewer slide, as they say. It's so ridiculous.
I know, it's like really sad that we have to censor ourselves, because I've been doing it too. Like, I can't say the word.
And then there's no appeal to, this isn't a clinical discussion. I mean, in the real sense, we're not encouraging people to do this. We're talking about the phenomenon, trying to give perspective, and specifically to say, hey, maybe don't do that. Maybe there's an alternative. You can get some help. You can establish new connections. You can get out of the funk. And not everyone needs medications. Actually, the first line of defense should be behavioral changes. And if you're
absolutely.
And if you're
the first thing I did was hire a coach, because traditional therapy, because I was like, I need help. And that was another thing. The hospital, they were like, we're going to set you up with a psychiatrist. I was like, perfect, because I need help. I got on the phone with a psychiatrist. Within like the first 3 minutes of the conversation, they were like, what pills do you need?
Oh, Jesus.
And they asked me, and I was like, I don't want pills. Pills got me into this mess. So I hired a coach, and it was all behavioral changes.
My answer would be Vicodin and Adderall. That I'll feel great. Or maybe we try something else.
That was actually so scary to me. I'm like, first of all, they're offering me pills, number one. Yeah. And two, they were asking me what I wanted.
I think a lot of doctors are, see, this also ties into the whole social media thing. It's like now some more specialty specific terminology and concepts have filtered into the mainstream. So a lot of people now, with the advent of the internet and different stuff, have WebMD. They go to a doctor and they say, hey, I think I have this diagnosis and I think this medication will work. So a lot of doctors are, not all, but a lot are just saying, what do you think is wrong? What do you want to do about it? And sometimes that just opens the door to a conversation. And sometimes they're lazy as hell. And they're just like, yeah, I agree. Good. Diagnosis, medication, done. And they can spend 5 minutes and take that other 10 minutes from and get paid for that for free after they walk out of the room, because I think there's like 50-minute limit on some of these getting seen by a doctor, which sucks.
Right.
That's changing too, though. There's a proliferation now, I'm all over the place, sorry, of physician's assistants and nurse prescribers that are working under a primary doctor at a practice. And so you get it's a little bit cheaper. And I would like to see that too. I'd actually like to see, say, nurse practitioners be able to hang out a shingle and open a shop and just take people off the street, like walk on in and I'll talk to you. I got 15 minutes, let's go, or half an hour, whatever long, and if they can do so, I'd like to see that. I don't know. There's a lot of changes I'd like to see. I think it should be as cheap and easy to get a physical as it is to get an oil change on your car. It should be 20,
Absolutely.
25, 50
just
bucks, out of pocket. And no need for massive health insurance and large hospital scale practices of physicians and whatnot. It should be a lot easier, but if I were the Wizard King of America, I would make a few changes. I would be
trust me.
I would be the first libertarian monarch.
And it's not even the whole bureaucracy of it. Because, for example, my experience in the hospital, I was in the emergency room for a while and then I went to the psych ward. But just the way I was treated, and then to see my hospital bill, my insurance mostly paid for it. But it's you're charging me this much to just be treated like a bum off the street. They just treated me like it was like a machine. And it's I'm just moving you through the conveyor belt.
There's a lot of people that are just there for the paycheck, unfortunately. And that's been a big complaint for mental health care for at least 60, 70 years. Now, it was worse before that. Let me tell you, one of the books, plugging my own content again. I think it was book 6 or 7 in the series. It's entitled Tyrion's Dreams and Visions, and it is a work written by a late 1600s student of physics, early psychiatrist, basically, or early doctor, before they were formally called doctors in a physician sense. Well, that's where we get physician from. Student of physics, the physical body study. Anyway, he wrote a lot about dreams and what he thinks caused them. It was very heavily tied up in his Christian faith, and he thinks your dreams come from God or the devil, etc. And good eating and right living can give you better dreams and prophetic dreams, all that good stuff. But the second half of the book was a polemic he wrote on the necessary changes to the practice of dealing with people who had mental health issues. And this is one of the earliest works I could find that advocated for visitor limitations limited to, by default, to family and friends, specifically permitted by the patient. Now, up to that point, one of the ways these free public hospitals and actually he worked at St. Bethlehem, which is where which they also called Bedlam, which is where we get the term, it's a madhouse, it's Bedlam. It was named after that specific hospital, the psychiatric care. Now, what they used to do is, in order to fund themselves, they would open it to public tours on the weekend. And, well-dressed gentlemen and ladies in their finery would parade through, antagonizing the psychotic people for fun on a Saturday afternoon, asking them intrusive questions and spinning up the manics and laughing at the schizophrenic in the corner, that kind of thing. And he said, this is barbaric. We should not do that. This is not healthy for the patients. He was one of the earliest patient rights advocates that said we should restrict visitors. We should not have this be an inappropriate public display. So that's a little piece of history. I love these books.
So that's interesting, though, because those visitors remind me of present day internet trolls.
They're there to
intentionally
laugh at you, to
prodding
provoke you for fun. Absolutely, that's a great connection. No, it is. But just to also comment on the or wrap it up in terms of the staff in there. I mean, I was. I'm a kind of a lazy guy in a sense of I don't want to work harder than I have to, but there's a basic element of the job of we got to talk to people. They're there because they need help. So at least spend a little bit of, so I used to do, individual daily assessments, not like full on workups, but
Yeah.
but how you doing today? Where are you at in the process? And sometimes I only get to see people 1 or 2 times before they moved on or moved to a different part of the hospital, or they were discharged, etc. Or I worked on a different unit and didn't see him again. But you got to invest that. And I was always encouraging people to try and do a little bit more, like connect with these folks, like at least ask them, how you doing? Where are you at in the process?
Yeah.
And get some feedback. What's going on in your life that brought you here? And that also ties into the idea of the behavioral changes should come first. It's like, whatever you're doing, it wasn't working because it led you to where you're at right now. So maybe we look at what you were doing and what do you think? Can you do something different? Is that going to help? Do you need to get out of the house more? Some people think, some people think it only works one way or the other, that either isolation leads to depression, or isolation is a symptom of depression. It's actually both. It's a circle.
Yeah, I could see both.
Downward spiral feedback loop. But then again, you get people like me, and I had to respect this as well. There were some people in who would do the clinical diagnostics on my team on the unit that day, where they would go, patient isolative, that kind of thing. I'm like, well, sometimes you just don't want to be around people, and sometimes you're like me, and I'm a damn hermit. I see nobody. I would never leave this room or my backyard ever again and deal with another human being in public if I could avoid it. It's just stressful. I just don't want to do it. I don't want to wait in traffic behind people at a red light. I don't want to stand in line at the grocery store. I don't want to do any of these things. I don't go to concerts, too damn many people pressed around. I'm like,
yes.
I got YouTube. I'll listen to music at home. None of this is, and then there's other people where they love it. If they don't get daily interaction with at least one other person, they suffer. So you also got to know where people are coming from. What's normal for you? There's a normal-ish, but also what's baseline for that person individually. You got to know that too. So, but then there's nope, gone. Wow, chase that thought. Okay, well, we'll forget about that. I'll stop. I've talked too much. We can get back to if you have any comment on all that.
No, I don't. I think this has been really insightful, though.
Thank you. Well, I just ramble. I just follow my thoughts and open my mouth, and I hope somebody finds it entertaining.
Actually, what I was going to say, when I was in the psych ward, if even just one person would have asked me how I was doing, that would have meant so much. So just that one simple thing, because I felt like nobody cared, and it was again, I think that experience was equally as traumatic as trying to end my own life.
Yeah. A lot of people get jaded and burnt out, and they get compassion fatigue, where it's just
I could see that though.
Yeah. I think a part of it is 12-hour shifts. Now I get why they do it. They say there's less medical error if there's less handoffs in care. I get that. And that's technically true, but I think there's more burnout, fatigue, lack of effort involved in 12-hour shifts, because the people who are performing that, the nurses, doctors, etc., they have to, in effect, gird their loins for the long haul, for the slog, for the 12-hour shift, that kind of, and not only that, back to back to back 12-hour shifts, because you're trying to do 3 in a week, so you have 4 days off. They're trying to min-max the system. I had, I think, the best experience with staff and patients and engagement and whatnot at a hospital where we did 8-hour shifts. And so there was one extra handoff per day, and the ball got dropped sometimes. It happens. We're only human, but people only had to hang in there for an 8-hour shift. They had more of themselves to give because they were going to have more time off before they had to come back and give more. I just think that's a bad model. I would almost outlaw it by by decree or whatever. But people have different opinions. But that was my experience.
Yeah, but it's funny though, because some occupations like pilots, it's illegal for them to have 12-hour shifts.
Oh yeah, it's not a it's not an unknown phenomenon that you get fatigued. That's why we don't have 24-hour shifts for almost anything ever anywhere, because you're not supposed to. You can't focus for that long and do a good job.
Well, so when I lived in Chicago, I met this anesthesiologist. They had to have one 24-hour shift a week.
Wow.
And that's such a precise job. Can you imagine being on your 23rd hour?
I don't want to be the guy on the table during his 23rd hour ever. No one should ever be. That's
hopefully
amazing.
They're just doing paperwork or something at that point.
Yeah, hopefully most of it is they're not actively doing the job for 24 hours straight. There's like on
Yeah,
call,
and I
so you
didn't
get
really
called
ask
in to
him.
do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also don't like the idea of sleeper positions where it's like you could, go to bed at 10 o'clock and get woken up 2 hours later at midnight because you got to come in and do your job. I'm like, that's not enough sleep. That's not healthy for anyone. Why not just have a completely separate night guy that does that? And the other
Right.
guy's
It's
the
not
day
even
guy.
healthy to like drive to your job at that point.
No, if you make it in one
that-
piece and don't kill anyone on your way, you might kill the patient on the table because you're sleep deprived. It's not good. Not good at all. Yeah. Well, I just realized we've been talking for about an hour. Do you want to get to the dream thing? We'll do that.
I would love that. Yeah.
Okay. Otherwise, we could just keep going
We
forever.
could probably talk all day.
Probably. Let me write. Ooh, excuse me. Got to do the timestamp here. I never used to write these down. And then I realized I probably should, because then I have to go look through the whole episode to try and find, where was that? I don't remember. Okay, as per my usual process, I'm going to shut up and listen. Our friend Angie's going to tell us all about her dream, and then we're going to figure it out together. So I'm ready when you are.
Benjamin the Dream Wizard wants to help you pierce the veil of night and shine the light of understanding upon the mystery of dreams. Every episode of his Dreamscapes program features real dreamers gifted with rare insight into their nocturnal visions. New Dreamscapes episodes appear every week on YouTube, Rumble, Odyssey, and other video hosting platforms, as well as free audiobooks exploring the psychological principles which inform our dream experience, and much, much more. To join the wizard as a guest, reach out across more than a dozen social media platforms and through the contact page at benjaminthedreamwizard.com, where you will also find the wizard's growing catalog of historical dream literature available on Amazon, documenting the wisdom and wonder of exploration into the world of dreams over the past 2,000 years. That's Benjamin the Dream Wizard on YouTube and at benjaminthedreamwizard.com.
Okay, so it's really segmented. Do you want me to go one segment at a time, or just go
and then
through the
identify
whole thing?
transitions. Yeah.
Okay, so the first segment is I'm with a friend from high school, and I graduated in '98, so I have like not even talked to this person since then. But she was in my dream. Her name is Nikki, and we were in my childhood neighborhood, but there's one street that in real life would normally lead to another neighborhood. It actually led to this nature preserve. And this nature preserve is actually a recurring location in my dreams. So when we arrived at this location, I was like all excited because I was like, oh, we can go hiking, we can ride bikes, because these are things that I have done at this location before in my dream. But then somehow we got separated, and I started walking through this forest, and there was like this river, and it was just like so peaceful that I didn't even care that I had lost my friend. I was just kind of like strolling down, like enjoying the trees, enjoying the river. And then I like ended up in this museum area and got lost. And that's kind of where the dream ended, that segment of the dream.
One sec here. Okay, and one thing I'm going to do is start a new page here. We're at the bottom. That's all my notes. Actually, hang on to these. I have a whole folder full of every single note I've ever taken.
Oh,
It's
really?
like, maybe I'll do a book one day on that. I'm not really sure what to do. What's the theme? How do I do that? I don't know. Okay, part two.
Part two.
Yes.
So I'm driving in a parking lot, and I'm borrowing someone else's car, so it's not my car. And I'm backing out of a parking spot, and the brakes are not working. So, but like I'm slowing down enough that I'm not going to hit anything, but then it's scary because I'm like using this car, because I was actually like prepping to go on a road trip. And so like my next leg is like a whole hour. So I'm like, okay, if the brakes don't work, is this car even safe? And so I put it in drive, and I test the brakes again, and I have to like push my foot down as hard as possible and the car will slow down a little bit, but it doesn't totally stop. But I'm so anxious to get to my next location that I decide to drive anyway, even with these faulty brakes.
Okay, catching up here. I wish I could write faster. I need to learn shorthand.
Yeah.
All the little squiggly curly cues. I would actually.
Well,
probably
luckily,
be beneficial.
none of these are like super detailed enough.
Right. I also
They're just like
I try to write down as much
vague.
Of your specific verbiage as I can, even though I'm trying to do shorthand as well. So it's one of those things of like, if you say I was scared, I don't write fearful. I write scared, because that word probably means something specific to you in this context. At least that's how you chose to describe the feeling you were experiencing. So that's why I get these things.
Okay.
Okay, is there a part 3?
Yes, there is a part 3.
Okay.
So as we discussed before, my dad has passed, but I have this recurring dream that he's alive, but it's like I'm the only one who knows, or me and my mom are the only one who knows. And I think it's weird because it's like he's supposed to be dead, but he's there. But then my mom pretends that everything's okay. So we're in this house, and I think it's supposed to be my childhood house, but it looks nothing like my childhood house. Like there's this ornate fireplace with like this mantle, and there's like pictures on the mantle. So it's like supposed to look all homey, but it just feels really odd and uncomfortable. And my dad is there. And again, I like think it's all weird. But my mom is just pretending that everything is okay. And I'm just I feel like I'm in my own world. Like I'm there with my parents, but I'm just like, what is going on? Like, why is she pretending everything's okay? And I don't feel comfortable saying anything to my dad because I feel bad because he's actually supposed to be dead. And it's just like this weird dynamic because the three of us are there, but I feel like I'm lonely and by myself.
Catching up again.
That's okay.
Dead air. We are still live. Anyone listening on audio only. Okay. This is the person I talked to last week had 5 segments. So
yeah, I have 5 because there's 2 more.
There you go. That's perfectly fine. I'm actually I don't think we'll be at it for 4.5 hours. So I don't know. That depends. Actually, the only reason I did that was the dreamer I had on had more questions. I said, what do you think? Do you want to keep looking at this? Like, yeah, what about this? So we just, and I'm not complaining. I'm like, oh, it dragged on. I'm like, that's what I do. So I'm in for the long haul. I clear the day. If it gets to about 3:30, I'm going to have to go. That's 3 hours from now, but I don't think we're going to get there. Okay. Part 4.
Part 4 is I had a new job working on a skyscraper. And I get there and I don't really know what's going on. I go in this room and the job is actually to be like on the outside in the scaffolding, like way up high. And I'm really scared, but I don't really want to admit to anybody that I am. So I just like pretend that I know what I'm doing. And I, they like give me some supplies or whatever. And I just go out on the scaffolding on the outside of the skyscraper. And there's like, I don't know how to describe it. There's like things covering the window. And basically my job is to take off those things, or like we're doing something with those coverings. And I'm on the scaffolding, like way up in the air, and I'm terrified to be up that high. And I look at the skyscraper and like only a fraction is complete. And I'm looking at the entirety of the skyscraper thinking like, oh my God, I'm so scared and there's so much more work to do. And I'm just like completely overwhelmed by the thought of it.
Okay. Caught up faster that time. Next page.
Okay,
I'm not even getting this. Oh, you can't really see it. It's full. That's okay. And this was, this will be number 5. Here we go.
Yes. So the last segment is I'm at my childhood home, and it's actually my childhood home. And our driveway in that home was on a hill. And I remember my friends, when they would come to pick me up, they wouldn't, or a lot of people like wouldn't even drive up our driveway because it was such a pain in the ass. So anyway, in the dream, I let my sister borrow my car, and she is trying to back it out of the driveway. And because it's on a hill or whatever, she backs out and like crashes my car and ends up totaling it. And her response is basically like, she doesn't really care. And like, I'm all upset because I'm like, this is my car. Now I don't have a car. And I'm like mad at my sister.
Okay. All right. Fantastic. Look at that. I used to do a lot of things. But in relation to this show specifically, I used to do clips, 20 to 30 minute clips of like thing. And I used to do what I called, I can't remember what I used to call it. But it was a teaser trailer kind of, where I just had clipped the section of people describing their dreams. And then, I think I need to reset the white balance. I'm all washed out here. Is that better or worse? I don't know. Fuck it. It didn't work. I'm not gonna obsess over it. And I was like, this would make an interesting thing. I was like, okay, what is he gonna do with this? And so I would release that like 2 days before the thing came out. So, but nobody watched them. Nobody watched the clips. I'm like, fuck it. I'll just do the show. Let's streamline, simplify. Let's keep this simple. I was just thinking about that. Like, that would make an interesting little what if type of thing in the very beginning. Maybe that's the thing I could do at the beginning. Instead of putting like a pre-recording chat, I could do the dream thing and then get into the episode. I don't know. I don't know if that would be as interesting to people. Maybe. Okay, so focus, Ben. My strong suit. Actually, that's I've got I don't think I have ADHD. I thought I did once upon a time, but it's more of this autistically legit internal preoccupation type of thing, where I have so many thoughts when people are talking, and then some of them are related to what I'm doing, and some of them are like not at all. I'm like, where did that come from? Why? Because I think there's a connection. Why do I have my own associations in my head? I'm fascinated by that.
No, I have an overactive brain too. And like, I think that's why I talk fast. And, but yeah, I think sometimes like, well, it goes back to diagnosis. Like what is ADHD anymore, really? It's been
overdiagnosed along with autism as well. There's like certain things that actually fit and some things that don't. Sometimes there's just normal people being weird because people are weird.
Exactly.
And that's, that's okay. Okay, back to your thing. So if we start with number one, we're gonna try and tell a story. Number one, this is very common, where not everybody, most people, one of these sections will make it out into their consciousness. So it's not as typical that someone has 5 discrete dreams in one night, or at least sections. But it is common that, say, one dreaming experience will have maybe scene changes where it's almost like fade to black, next scene of a movie. That's actually very, very common.
Yeah, that's very common of my dreams.
Yeah. Now, did you have the experience that this was all kind of one chunk, or separate dreams in the same night?
Yeah, usually when I wake up, I remember it as one chunk, and it's just like, it's almost like watching back-to-back TV shows.
Yeah, gotcha. And that's what I was thinking too. So it's a different phenomenon from, I had a dream, I woke up and went to the bathroom, and then I had a second dream after I went back to sleep. Now, very often it will, and very often it won't, but those dreams will be connected by, like, since I was having those thoughts, I went back into it sort of, or I had something related to it that carried on. But what am I trying to explain? My philosophy, my theory, and I don't know of anyone else who says this, but that's why I say it's my theory. Did I invent it? Hell if I know. I probably need to read more books, but the way I look at it, my operant theoretical perspective is that, the lungs breathe, the heart beats, and the brain thinks. And it does that whether we're conscious or not. That's the good news, is you don't have to manually beat your heart and your lungs, nor do you have to manually create thoughts. It's actually in some ways impossible to do. We don't know what creativity is or where it comes from. What inspires someone to what gave Archimedes the inspiration to Eureka? Well, he saw something, but what made the connection in his head? The water displacement. Why did he think of it and no one else before him who had ever gotten into a bathtub had that same thought? We don't know. Why him?
Yeah.
So anyway, long story short on that. What I think makes dream interpretation or possible is the idea that we're just exploring thoughts, and they're the same thoughts you have when you're awake. They're just happening when you're asleep, which means there's less conscious control over changing your thoughts. Like if I'm doing something and it's time to stop and do something else, I can shift gears. Now it's not easy for me, but I can, and most people can do it easier than I can. But I'm working on one project, I'm out of time, now I'm driving my car. Well, I'm not driving my car while I'm working on the project, and I'm not working on the project while I'm driving my car. We shift gears. But we can continue to think about the project while we're driving the car. So what happens in dreams is a connected stream of consciousness of thoughts that kind of one to the next. And when you have a discrete dream section, there's something that occurred during that, or some kind of resolution or inspiration of the next connected sign of, or not sign, connected chunk. In a series of chunks that kind of are like working your way through the steps of a process. And it happens when we're awake if we pay attention to it as well. It's like we're thinking about one thing. I gotta go to the store. Oh yeah, but I need to check my tire pressure. It looked a little low. And where did I put that thing? Did I put it in the the little tire checker air gauge thing? And so these connected thoughts are, and all of it is in service of, well, I got to get to the store. But then you're like, do I even need to go to the store today? Maybe I'll go tomorrow. And then, so we work through these, long story short, that's what we're going to try and do, is connect these things together. What are they? So all of that's like 5 minutes of telling you what we're going to do instead of just doing it. Sorry. I like to explain things, especially today. I think I'm waking up. Finally got enough caffeine in me. Okay. Section 1. You're with a friend from high school. And by the way, I think we're close to the same age. I graduated like early mid 90s and then went to college around 98, 2000. But anyway, just apropos of nothing. Hello, fellow Gen Xer, right? You're with a friend from high school, and this was a person you haven't seen in, we would say, roughly 30 years, almost.
Yeah, like maybe I saw her in 99. We were both in college, but that would have been the latest.
It's a good chunk of time. So why this person specifically came back into your dream? What do they represent? And we'll get to that. You're in your childhood neighborhood. There's a nature preserve. You're excited to go. You get separated from the friend, and there's a forest and a river. It's peaceful. And then it ends in a museum. So there is a motif of reflecting on the past at the very least. You're setting this stage in your mind of remember when, or something about your current circumstances bears some reflection upon that time. You mentioned biking and hiking. What was the nature of your relationship with this friend? Like, what did you do together as friends, or what was her personality like? If you have any thoughts that come to mind.
Well, she was actually a year older than me. I liked hanging out with her because, I mean, a year is actually an emotional maturity in high school is actually a lot.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed the friendship because I felt like I was learning from her so that I knew what to expect later in life. So, for example, we were even friends when I was a senior and she had moved on to college. Like, we still stayed in touch. And I remember visiting her in school because I just liked having the outlet it was almost like I could see my future through her. And I felt like I was learning through her. And it was actually really hard my senior year because we were such good friends.
Oh, and then she moved on.
It was actually a loss for me. And I also, because I had invested so much time in her, I didn't feel like I had any good friends in my own grade. And as a senior, that's a problem, right? So
Yeah.
I had to, like, in the beginning of my senior year, I had to almost like rush to form deeper friendships with the loose friends that I already had, because I didn't feel like I had as many solid friendships in my own grade. So that kind of left me, yeah, with a feeling of loss in the beginning of my senior year because I just felt alone.
For sure. And then you've got the setting that you. It's funny to say chose to show yourself, but in a way it is. It's like it also means something in terms of you. I like to do counterfactuals. You didn't set it in today, modern times. You took yourself back to the past and set it in your childhood neighborhood versus you could have said it in the future on Jupiter.
Yeah.
You could have said it in present day, but in, Algeria, who knows, just anywhere that's different. But it was this specific place and time. So there's definitely a looking back to the past for answers or insight type of thing going on here. Or something you're going through currently that sparked that reflection. It's like, I think we got some good stuff already so far. So
does it mean anything that nature preserve, like, that's a recurring location in my dreams? Does that mean anything?
I think it certainly does. Definitely anything that is a recurring theme in dreams is, what I say is that we tend to crystallize certain iconic representations. And when they do come back in a recurring format, there's definitely some meaning we've invested into that concept and what happens with people who bring to me, say, a series of recurring dreams is one of two things. Well, one of three things. If we completely fail and I give them nothing comes from nothing. What are you going to do? If I give them something useful, or they have some useful insight during the experience, the nature of the dreams will change. They'll be able to move on to a different area of the recurring dream, or the nature of the recurrence changes. It's not the same anymore, or they stop altogether because the message is received. It's no longer a mystery. It's been solved, so there's no need for it anymore. So yeah, probably figuring out what the nature preserve is for you might change the nature of your interaction with that in your dreams, or might cause it to stop entirely because you don't need it anymore. We'll see. But you went with this friend to the nature preserve?
Yes. So we arrived together.
As in separately arrived at the same place together, or traveled together?
I think we traveled together.
Okay. So in a way, this friend brought you to the nature preserve. And what I mean by that is that she didn't physically pick you up and carry you. She didn't drive you, but the purpose of putting yourself in this frame of mind and then having her be the one with you as you go there means something about that time period in your life, the nature of your relationship with her, and how that brings you to whatever this nature preserve is for you.
Yes.
So did your, where you grew up as a kid, have a nature preserve at the end of the street? I mean, like literally, physically?
So as I was talking, it reminded me because my neighborhood was brand new when my parents bought our house. So it wasn't finished being expanded. So initially, because we lived on a cul-de-sac, but then the main stream, which our cul-de-sac branched off of, it actually, like, very shortly after our street, it ended, and it was a wooded area. But then that eventually was torn down and houses were built. So it actually might represent that. For sure. And I forgot all about that until we just started talking.
That's exactly how this works. Yeah. I don't have any magic powers. We just talk and shit happens. It's weird. Now, metaphysically, I think that's magic. I think that's what we're doing here is legit.
Yeah.
Now, it also reminded me when I was 5 years old, where I lived, that's exactly at the end of the street, just the barrier, dead end with the big sign, and beyond it, farmland, an old broken down farm, a row of trees. That's exactly what I did when I was a kid. I ran out to go dirt bike in the field and run around and get into trouble and try not to get tetanus from the barn. Get the old equipment in there. So there was a very real exploration of wild nature and unlimited possibility type of thing happening there, especially for someone who's young, where, it's like we have the very well constructed, very sanitized suburban landscape in a way. It's not, and by contrast, the wide open, wild, unconstructed, even in some ways untouched by human hands, like the raw potential of nature is out there. I'm gonna stop right there. You're nodding a little bit. Would you phrase it any differently, or?
No, like that makes perfect sense, because I remember my sister and I and other kids in the neighborhood, we loved going in the woods to explore. Like, that was our favorite thing to do.
Gotcha. We're on to something here. Wow. I just wrote down words. It's woods. What am I doing? Woods. Oh my goodness. And you were excited to go, excited to explore. So it was not a fearful, trepidatious, hesitant. It was not a determined, I have to go, something must be done. It's like, I want this. I want to go to the place of where the love of exploration is expressed.
Yeah, and that's probably why it seemed familiar to me, and why it's a recurring place, because I think it represents this woods from my childhood.
Oh, I want to hear from you if you have another dream about the nature preserve tonight, and it's suddenly it's at the end of your street like it was before, and you have more memories come up. That would be fascinating. And then you got, and this is the reason why I said it is as if you've chosen this person to travel with you, to take you there, because once you're there, she's not necessary anymore. You get separated. Now, it wasn't a fearful separation of, oh my God, suddenly she's gone. It was more of you just noted her absence. Or am I wrong? Or how would you describe it?
No, that's a good way to describe it. And I guess it's
told you right on the paper.
Same. I guess it's the same concept of when she graduated and went to college. It's like,
yeah, okay.
I knew that was going to happen. And so even though it was sad, it was just like, I knew this was going to happen, and now I have to deal with it. So it was the same kind of evolution in my dream, where it's like I lost her, but I was accepting of it.
You're taking yourself in this dream a little bit of walk down memory lane. And this is all prologue in some ways. This is like before we get into the real action of the dream. What is going on here? Why this? So you've set yourself up to say, okay, remember where you came from. Remember your experiences and how they felt and the general progression of things. Oh, geez, she's sneezing snot. Can you not do that? Oh, right on the paper. Nasty. She's got a little...
like cats always know where to not be.
I know. Can you just quit sneezing on that? Now she's going to sneeze on the keyboard. Oh, no. She's got a little, I think, seasonal allergy type of thing. She'll have, this is apropos of nothing, just cat stories. She will have a sneezing fit where for like 15, 20 seconds, and I'm like, are you going to live? I don't even know. Okay, you can sit. No, you can't sit on those papers either. Come here, girl. This one's named Baby. And then we got one we call Wookie, your daughter. And then the black one is Bubba, like Bubba Gump Shrimp Company. Bubba. He had a little cut on his lip because he was too excited when we found him as a kid. He was starving, so he was too excited to eat a torn open bag of tuna. You know, we get the plastic bags. He'd stuck his head right in there, but got his lip caught on it and cut his lip open on the edge of the plastic, and had a little flap of chunk. Oh, we were terrified. It's like, oh, is he gonna lose his lip? What would a cat look like with no lips? It's crazy. Apropos of nothing. I'm all over the place here today. Baby girl, I love you. I love you. Go away. Go away. Go away. Okay. Maybe if I pick up the paper, she can't lay on them. Okay. And separated, but the nature of the separation was it felt like it was not unanticipated. Like you knew it was coming. When it finally happened, you're like, oh yeah, that's how it goes. But very soon you felt a deep sense of peace, even though you were alone and your friend had gone away. You were, no, maybe I'm throwing that in there. Like I'm exaggerating. You said it was so peaceful. Now, how would you characterize that? Was it a soothing peacefulness, as in I'm no longer distressed by being alone or being separated from my friend because the woods are so enjoyable to be in? How would you characterize it?
I think it was more as just an escape from life. Like, oh, the woods and this river are so peaceful. Because I think I remember having the thought of like, I'm just going to take a long walk while I'm here. Because I wanted to enjoy it for as long as I could.
Okay.
So it was more like the escapism aspect, I would say.
Cannot read my papers. I love you, baby girl. You gotta move. You gotta move. But then you found a museum, like a physical building, or like the forest opened up and suddenly there were paintings on the trees and then there were walls. And how'd you?
Yeah, well, by museum, it was more like a enclosed and manufactured nature preserve. So not really a museum. What are those things called? Like, like botanical gardens that are like enclosed and man-made. I don't know how to describe, but it was like it had like a museum feel as opposed to like actually being in nature.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yes. There is a big difference between this is nature is wild. It is untouched by the hand of man, so to speak. But there she goes. Come on. How about you want to sit on my head? Let's sit on my head. There we go. Let's see if she does that. Nope. But then there is, you said that just right. Botanical garden. There's a, it just reminded me, I don't know if you're a sci-fi fan or not, but there's a, the Dune series by Frank Herbert. They just did the movies, the Denis Villeneuve with Timothée Chalamet. Some people liked it, some people didn't. I like moody, slow, intense.
I'm not familiar with it.
Oh yeah, the two Dune movies. I check them out. There's people who hate them,
okay,
but I love them. Long story short, in the book series, several thousand years down the road after the main story, there are now what are called museum Fremen. Now the Fremen were the original warriors of the wasteland that helped Paul Atreides overthrow the Harkonnen and become emperor of the universe, etc., etc. Well, thousands of years after him, the only remnant of that warrior culture of hard-bitten, tough as nails people that lived in the desert on a drop of water a day, the only people left are museum Fremen, people who put on the costume and tell the stories. The culture itself is dead, and only the stories remain and the ability to put on a show of what it once was. So there's okay. So all of that to say, this trip down memory lane, you've arrived at what used to feel to you like the exciting possibility of an unlimited, wild, untamed, untapped potential. You realize it's now encapsulated as a display, as a botanical garden type of thing.
Yeah.
Are you feeling something in connection with that? I mean, is that?
Well, honestly, like what I'm feeling is like when you're a child, you envision life a certain way, and it's usually like, oh, I'm gonna like do all these great things, and you can, but there's actually like a lot of struggle associated with life. And I think it's just like the reality of adulting versus like the naiveness of being a child. And like, actually that's like simpler times, right? Because I didn't have to worry about all this stuff that I was worrying about now. And I could have those dreams without the struggles. For example, when I was a little girl, I wanted to move to Hawaii, and now I'm here and it's great. But as I mentioned before, there was a lot of struggle associated with that.
That might come to it. A lot of your life is resonating with me just in now exactly in that way as well, which is I used to want to travel more, and I went through a period of my life where I was, novelty seeking and like, well, let's get out and see what's out there. We can't sit at home all the time. That's changed a little bit with the internet. Now if I'm curious, I just look something up and watch a video. I'm like, oh,
yeah,
been there, done that.
In some locations, I recommend just Googling it because it's not even worth traveling. Yeah.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, yeah. Well, and I had an experience that kind of ruined it for me too, which was I got on a plane in Portland and we stopped off in Denver, of course, the hub, and you transfer to another plane. And we got off the plane, and as soon as we left the airport in Michigan, 1,500 miles away, it looked like Portland area. It looked like there's some trees, there's a Taco Bell, there's a hotel.
Yeah.
Like I don't feel like I'm in a different city. I feel like I spent all that time to just stay where I was. And so, but long story short on this, too late for that. I lost a bit of the zeal for travel or to see new things because once I got there, I was like, this isn't what I was hoping it might be. And now I'm just away from the comforts of home, and I would actually rather be at home. Now I regret this. So this was an expensive waste of time. And so I just stopped going out to do things because I'm just like, I just had to, it was a long, slow period of time really realizing I am a wizard. I'm a hermit. I need to stay home and just do my own thing. She is now going to lay all over everything. I'm going to put my papers on you. We're going to flip this script. How about that? Huh? I'll rub your belly. Oh, she's going to bite me for real. Stop that. But now she wants to play. Oh God, this is okay. So, all right, now that's just
a good
section.
Analogy, though. I like that.
Yeah. Which one? I don't remember what I said.
No, about traveling, because it reminded me when I lived in Chicago. I went to Dubai, thinking I was going to go to this like magical place. It's all the same American stores, all the same American restaurants. Everyone speaks English. I was like, it just felt like home, basically.
Yeah.
Actually, and I went to this restaurant. And there was a local restaurant where I live. There was a picture on the wall. This restaurant in Dubai had the exact same picture as this restaurant in Chicago. And that's when I kind of was like, why did I come here?
Yeah, that is, there's good and bad things in regards to that. It's like cultural differences create conflict, sure, but they also create differences. I mean, so if you want the ability to go somewhere and see something different, you don't want it to be the same. The whole purpose of getting out of your bubble here is to go see something that's different. And then if you get there and it's not different, and one of the things people say is, oh, you just went to the touristy areas, you didn't go off the beaten track. And I'm like, in some of these places you don't want to go off the beaten track because maybe the locals out in the sticks don't like Americans very much, and you might never be heard from again. So you got to be very careful. Yeah, and I
actually did go off the beaten path, and I didn't feel safe because I was by myself. And like this guy pulls up. Everyone in Dubai has money, so this guy in this like $1 million car pulls up. He wasn't speaking English, but I could tell he wanted me to get in his car.
Yeah,
and I was like, hell no.
This is not happening. Nope.
Yeah.
Nope.
So yeah.
And then depending on which country you're in, it can be varying degrees of illegal to defend yourself. Like if you've got spare mace or a little pocket mace or a stun gun, like you go to England per se, they will lock you up. You can't just use a weapon to tase rapists. What's wrong with you?
And that makes it feel even more unsafe because you don't
not even allowed
know
to defend
how
yourself.
to mind your P's and Q's in a foreign country.
For sure. So there's and that can be what makes it exciting. Some people are like, I want to feel like I'm in danger. My life has been too safe up till now. God bless you. I hope you live. Good luck. I'm not doing that. Okay, that's number one. End of the dream. Number two. So hard transition point, fade to black, and that's why I put. I used to put little deltas. Delta means change, transition, whatever, transformation. But now I actually number them if people say they're different. So something about starting from that point, having the fullness or completion of a particular way of conceiving this idea, having it end on realizing that where you're at now is a more manufactured, curated imitation of the original feeling, that bam led you into the next section of the dream where you're in a parking lot in a borrowed car backing out of a spot and the brakes aren't working. So the first thing that came to my mind, I wrote it down over here, is boogeyman / molasses. And this is a typical dream that people will often report. I was running from something that intended to hurt me, but my legs had no strength. I don't remember my dreams. 5 in my entire lifetime I could tell you about. And an element of a dream just came back to me. Not much, just the experience of I'm running up a small hill. And we're talking about maybe to reach the peak would be 15, 20 feet ahead of me. And it's a very gradual slope, but I can't see what's beyond it. And I don't know what's behind me, but my legs have no power. I cannot make forward progress up this very not steep at all hill. And that's it. That's all. That's my typical dream experience, is like, if anything sticks with me in the morning, it's like I was running up a hill and I couldn't run. Not very interesting. But that is very what is categorized for centuries now as a typical dream, attempting to escape from danger and the inability to do so. Now, you weren't exactly running from danger.
No, but my next leg, because I was trying to get home, and that's why I borrowed the car. So there was like an eagerness to get home, though. So that's why I was like, okay, the brakes aren't working very well, but I'm going to take this car anyway.
And that's an interesting continuation from, you were at your childhood home.
Yeah.
And experiencing a curated wilderness, the carefully managed potential of an imitation of a wild area and the excitement of exploration. And maybe, just phrasing it that way, my purpose, why was I driving the car? Why was I backing out of the parking space? Was to get home. So we could speculate and hold it loosely and tell me if it. Normally, when I talk to people, I don't always say this, but I try to. I just ramble until you have some inspired thought. Number one,
Okay.
But number two, never hesitate to tell me I'm wrong. If ideally I say something in just the right way and you get a zing, it's like head to gut, and you go, oh, wait a minute, and bam, an idea comes out of that, and you're like, just like you were saying, actually, this reminds me of my childhood home. I hadn't put that together before. Like, that's what we're doing, baby. That's what I'm talking about. I try not to get too excited about it. But that's what I'm trying to do. So, and never hesitate to tell me I'm wrong, to go,
Okay.
no, I don't feel that, and that's perfectly fine. So, this cat, we're going to have a 3-hour episode because she won't.
I feel like it's a good omen, though, right?
Maybe it is. She's being so lovey. She is. She's a good girl. So, okay. So, what was I saying? So the next thought that would possibly come out of that was, how do I go back? How do I recapture that feeling? And what you're in is a vehicle, a dysfunctional vehicle, where the brakes don't work, and that puts you and others at risk. And your first thought wasn't, oh my God, I'm going to crash. It's, I'm going to hit someone else's car. I'm going to do damage to other people.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, because that was my specific thought, because the first thing I did was back out, and I was like, oh, I don't want to hit these cars behind me. And yeah, that was actually kind of my overarching thought. It wasn't even about my own safety, because obviously if I can't stop and I get in a wreck, my safety is in danger as well. But that didn't even
occur to you. Yeah. So, and also the idea that it's a borrowed car. It's like, this is not my car. Not only am I'm in a dysfunctional vehicle that's not even my own. And that's, what is it? If we were to look at it like, I gave you life advice that was meant for me, but not suited for you. If you tried to follow that path, you were borrowing my vehicle for travel to a different mental or physical destination, and it's dysfunctional. It doesn't even meet your needs. So it's like I'm giving you bad advice based on my experience that doesn't work for you at all. It actually might put you and others in danger.
Okay, so I think I just made the connection of what this is all about. So my family of origin, and I'm not criticizing my parents or anyone, but it was dysfunctional. But I thought that was the rules of life.
It was normal to you. Yeah.
I carried that with me because I'm 45 now. So up until I was like 40, I thought that's just how you lived life. And it wasn't until I hired a coach and actually started like learning my own rules of life and what is functional for me that I started living in a different way, which is completely different than how I was taught. So I think it's just like the symbolism of staying in the old baggage of what's not working for me.
Absolutely. Oh, I'm so glad. Well, now,
especially because it's someone else's car.
Yeah, it is. It's someone else's life advice or example that was.
Yeah.
And you've probably had experiences where you attempted to put bad advice into practice and it ended up hurting someone else, maybe, or unintentionally. Like you were trying to do the right thing, but it
Yeah, I can't think of a specific example, but that's basically how I lived my life, most of my adult life. I took other people's advice because I didn't trust myself. I didn't think I knew what I was doing, and I didn't.
Oh, yeah.
But I took other people's advice because I thought they knew better than me.
Yeah. And so you, rather than say getting out of the car, you're like, the destination I need to reach is so important, perhaps, that I'm going to risk using this. Or what is it? It's not exactly that. It's more like this is the only mode of transportation I've got, or analyzing that as a concept.
Yeah, like it was almost like I was desperate for that mode of transportation, but are there other options available? I don't think I even looked into that.
Certainly in the dream, you didn't conceptualize it that way. You're like, imagine this is what I've got to work with, and I have to make the best of it. And so what you did is you went an additional step, and you went slow. You tried to modify how you implement the bad advice. Like maybe that will maybe I'm doing it wrong. And even that, you managed to get back out of the spot. And if I just take my foot off the gas, okay, maybe the brakes don't work, but it comes to a stop eventually. Okay, how about driving forward? Well, if I slam really hard, it'll slow down a little bit. That's what made me think of the boogeyman dream of like inability to escape from something, and also inability to stop forward progress if you think you're heading in the wrong direction. If you commit to a path at speed on the freeway, jamming on the brakes, and you slow down really slowly, automatic car wreck. I mean, so there's a lot of great analogies for vehicles and transportation. But you also thought, I'm late to an appointment, and you just decided to go anyway. You're like, I have to do this. It was something important. Do you remember what the appointment was?
So that's just it. Did I say that I was late to an appointment? Because I don't.
That's what I wrote down. Maybe I said it wrong.
Well, I think there was an urgency, but it was like a self-imposed urgency. Because I don't think I really needed to like be home at a certain time, but just because my desire to arrive at the destination was so great, it had that urgency behind it.
Absolutely, yeah. So I mean, if we look at it like that, it's like in life, you can stand still for a while, but not permanently. I mean, at some point, you got to make some forward progress in some direction. It's almost like, God, I'm having all kinds of thoughts today. I wish I thought of this on my own, but I had to understand it somewhere. It's like, why did what's his name, Alice in Wonderland, the dude that wrote that, Lewis Carroll, why did he put certain concepts into the mouth of the Red Queen and the White Queen on the chessboard? What are these analogies for? And like in the book, the Red Queen says to in Alice, all ways are my ways, and she was in charge of growing the roses, the right colors, and she represents nature, red in tooth and claw, and she will off with your head at a whim. You're just like nature. And the specific phrase I was thinking of is that in the kingdom of the Red Queen, you have to run as fast as you can just to stay in the same place. If you stop running, you fall behind, and running faster than you can is impossible. So it's like but you have to do it anyway. You have to make forward progress in some. Anyway, that just came to mind. Apropos of nothing, I don't know. Maybe not. Oh, she's got a decoy paper. She's sitting on it. That's what finally worked. I got to remember to do that. I got papers all over the place.
Yeah, decoy.
I used to put boxes on the desk and then put a towel in the box, and they laid on it for a minute, and then they discovered they liked my mouse pad better, or my keyboard. They want to lay on the keyboard. This is not good. Cats. I call it value-added content. Okay. That is amazing that you just thought of dysfunctional patterns from family, because the next part of the dream, where does it go? Your dad's alive and you're back in your childhood home again.
Yes.
Yep.
Talk about dysfunctional.
Right? That's not how death is supposed to function. But in your mind and in a metaphysical way, our parents never die. They are always in us because we are of them, and the experience we had with them, even when they're physically no longer living, they are still an influence. They are still like the time you can't what has been seen, another internet meme, what has been seen cannot be unseen. All you can do is try to forget about it, but the fact that it happened will always be with you.
Like this I don't think this is too woo-woo for you, but I don't know how woo-woo your listeners are, but like my dad is always with me spiritually. So I always think of him, like I don't think of him as being dead. Like he's just with me in a different way.
Yeah. No, and I think that's very true. I tell people, and I believe it, angels and demons are more real than this physical reality we can touch. And people go, what are you talking about? I'm like, it's concepts, ideas. Ideas can never die, and they pre-exist humans. Anything we've ever invented, I believe we only discovered. I mean, you can't invent something impossible. You can only discover what is possible. So we didn't invent the language of mathematics. We discovered math. That, you know, you take 1 and 1, now you got 2. That's the way it is. There's no human will, imposition of human will that can change that fact of nature, that kind of thing. Anyway, so that's I'm all over the place on concepts. And that, I think that's what Plato was getting to with his world of forms. There is an essence of chairness that encompasses all chairs that have ever been invented. And that's how we define things like a tree. What is a tree? There's an essence of treeness. It's got bark and branches and leaves. It's a thing. And yeah, I'll stop there. You get it.
No, but also maybe I played a role of, because this is a recurring thing of my dad being alive in my dreams, but like I probably play a role in that because I acknowledge him as like his spirit still being alive.
Sure. Yeah. And even the people that we had a complicated history with, we very often still love them and miss them and wish they were with us and value the good things they taught us, even if it was diamonds in a pile of shit, you know, that kind of a thing. And it's a very complicated thing too, because every child wants to love their parents, I think, you know, and we grow up and we either do because they were good generally and we can forgive their mistakes, or we love them in spite of their mistakes, even if they were awful. And that can be a hard thing of like, why do I love this person I hate because they hurt me? We experience love and hate at the same time. And I just tell people that's perfectly normal. That's exactly what you love them for, the good things and their potential that they never quite reached. But also you can hate them for the bad things they did when they were being lazy or neglectful or abusive. Perfectly fine. And it's the same person at the same time. And it's okay to feel conflicting emotions. You know, I would say don't even try to resolve that. Just let it be what it is.
Right.
You know,
because you can feel two different things at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. And you can say, you know, I love live music. I hate being in a crowd. And that's me. I love listening to live music. I don't want to be in a stadium full of people. That, number one, I want to sit down. I'm an old ass man with gray in my beard. And the people in front of me, they want to stand up and jump around, and I can't see shit over their heads. So there's just a lot of reasons, but what are you going to do? So I'm like, okay, I don't hate live music now. I just don't go because I can't, because the negatives are not worth it for me. Okay, long story short, enough about me. Talking about me a lot lately, so thanks for that. Thanks for listening. You're with your mom, and she knows he's still alive. So okay, if we take this out of the physical representation and say, you know, would you say that your mom is familiar with how you feel about your dad? The conflicted nature? She knows he still lives for you long past his passing?
No, she's not aware of that. But the thing that resonates with me with the dream is, in real life, my mom sweeps things under the rug. Oh, so this is a representation of that. Like, she knows this is weird, but she's pretending everything's okay.
She's going to pretend it's just fine. Yeah, definitely. And so there was so it's your childhood home, but it's not. So later, I think you had another section where you were actually back at your childhood home. And that's interesting.
Correct.
You from segment to segment, you jump in and out of this.
Oh, interesting.
Reflecting.
Yeah.
You're in there, but in this section, it's not actually your childhood home. And there's this. You focused on a fireplace and a mantle, and that you said that specifically was not in your childhood home.
No, but it's like what you would picture, like the picture perfect home to be. So I think it's part of my mom's facade of like pretending everything's okay. Gotcha. And like we have this perfect home and perfect family. But it's like, no, this is not our home. This is like weird. What are we doing? That's why I wrote down weird and uncomfortable for sure. Mom's pretending everything's okay. Yeah. And the feeling that ends that section is, I feel like I'm all alone, the only one there, even though you're in the presence of other people. And that's how I felt when I was like for 18 years, basically, in my parents' house. Yeah. Well, you didn't really feel deeply connected to them. You didn't feel like they saw you, or, No, it's like we were
involve
just
you.
like, like the way I describe it to people, it felt like a business. Like we each had a role and we played our role,
Yeah.
and there was like no emotional connection at all.
One of my favorite comedians, I can't remember his name, but he said, what am I doing with my life lately? Well, I started a horrible nonprofit with my wife where we just take care of these three strangers.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah,
So that's what it felt like.
I work my ass off and they just eat everything in the house. And yeah, no, that very much can be a thing. You know, if he was joking about it, he goes on to tell other stories about his kids and how much he loves them. And what another thing, just the idea that his kids had personalities the moment they came out. Like our one daughter, she's a take no shit, I'm gonna get it done type of person. She came out of the womb like, let's go, I got places to be. And we went on vacation once and she already had the car loaded and she was waiting there for us like, what's taking so long, let's get on with it. I think he ended it by saying the whole house is terrified of her. Just because she's such a intense go-getter personality that doesn't want to wait for people to lollygag. Anyway, apropos of nothing. So no, that's good. So you're reflecting on so the idea of borrowing this car and let's back it all up and try and tell the story. The idea of I want to go back to, this is me trying to put words in your mouth. So I want to go back to when I had this excitement of childhood exploration and the untamed nature of nature, but I've realized that either what it was then or where I'm at now is this overly curated museum version of what I used to find exciting and inspirational. How do I get where I'm going? Well, I have a borrowed car that doesn't work very well, but it's the only vehicle I've got. And where does that vehicle take you? It takes you back to your home, in a sense. Takes you back to your home where you're thinking about the nature of the vehicle. Where did I get this car from? Oh, I got it from my dad, who's dead, but my mom as well, she sweeps things under the rug. So I got this. Where I'm at right now is a product of both of them, and feeling like I'm not being seen or appreciated for who I am. And then bam, into the next section, you've got a new job, and a new job is new opportunities, a new endeavor, a new search for meaning, perhaps. Like, what am I doing with my life? And this is where we get into it's going to matter how you interpret this. Like, you're either in a new job currently, really in your real life, and you're feeling unfulfilled or wondering if this is where I should be, or you're looking at, it's not about the job, it's more about the idea of finding a purpose, finding somewhere to invest your energy that's going to give a return on investment, like a paycheck. Where do you think you're going with the job idea?
So that resonates a lot because I actually just quit corporate America 2 months ago to start my own business.
You do
coaching.
have a new job, and it's terrifying. You were out on a scaffolding outside a skyscraper trying to build this thing, but trying to uncover the windows specifically. So that people inside can see out, or so that you can see in, or what's...
Oh my God, that makes so much sense, because my biggest fear with my new occupation is allowing myself to be seen.
Oh, yeah. Is it okay to talk about it, or we should keep that separate, private?
Yeah.
Or...
No, I need to talk about this.
Okay, fair enough. And what I mean by talk about it is the nature of the work. I mean, what does it mean to be seen in the context of the work?
Well, basically, because for my new coaching business, like, I'm selling myself and what I can do for other people. It's not just like when I worked in my corporate job, it's like I can like work on this spreadsheet or whatever, but it's like actually me and my services and what I can do for other people. So I have to really put myself out there.
Yeah. So there is, and this is what goes back to what I was saying, where there's people who will cause themselves physical pain to deal with emotional pain. And one of the deepest fears people have is like, if you had to have if you had to live with hemorrhoids or do public speaking, a lot of people would go, give me those ass blisters.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, exactly. And that is terrifying. It feels physically threatening to be embarrassed in public.
Well, and especially I grew up in a very critical environment, so I just have this huge fear of being criticized. So every time I put myself out there, my first thought of, and I'm trying to get away from this, I try to avoid ways to get criticized, and I'm trying to just forget all that and put myself out there and not give a shit if I get criticized.
Yeah.
But it's really hard. especially with all the internet trolls and whatnot.
I don't enjoy it either. I don't know anyone enjoys criticism.
And people are mean in real person. That's one of the reasons why I left corporate America.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, no, but it's a normal, natural thing. Like, but also I don't deal well with praise. Like, it's horribly embarrassing. So I wish to neither be critiqued nor praised. How do you do that? I have no idea.
Hide. But that doesn't work either.
Complete isolation.
Yeah.
Not so good for I'm going to coach you from over here. Just don't look at me.
And nobody will ever find out about me because I'm
for
hiding.
Sure. Because you got to self-promote. Yeah. No, for sure. And that's, wow. I mean, that's really good. We jumped right into that one. It's, but also, and you, what I wrote down was you felt scared, but you were trying to hide it. And of course, that's just another layer of embarrassment we try to avoid. Not only do I want to perform well in front of an audience, I don't want them to know how scared I am either. I think, did I mention stage fright before we got started, or was that only I did. Yeah.
No, you did.
I love talking to people and I love ideas because it radically changed my perspective. If you think of stage fright as abnormal, as a bad response, as something you should not be feeling, it is terrifying. And then one day someone said to me, you never get over stage fright. You just learn to like it. And I'm like, you're right. That blew my mind and literally changed my physical experience. Like, I would get up in front of a crowd. I tried to do karaoke when I was younger, 21, 22, whatever, go to the bar. And I would get up in front of people and my body would shake. My leg, I would have one leg that wouldn't quit moving. And I couldn't make it stop. I had no physical control over that. And the only thing that made any difference was that reframing, was that idea of like, this is not dangerous. This is a rush. This is the thrill. This is the adrenaline you're looking for. This is
and we also were talking about Tony Robbins, and I don't know if you've ever heard him say this, but he tells this story about Bruce Springsteen. Like, before he would go on stage, he would like someone would ask him, like, how do you know you're ready to go on stage? And he would be like, yeah, like my heart's beating really fast and I'm sweating and my hands are shaking. And that's when I know that I'm excited and ready to go on stage. And then Carly Simon had really bad stage fright. And like, someone asked her, like, well, how do you know you're ready to go on stage? And she would be like, well, like, my heart's beating really fast and like I'm sweating really bad and my hands are shaking. And that's when I know I'm having a panic attack and I can't go on stage. And his point is, the physical sensations of excitement and fear are exactly the same. It's just the story of what you're telling yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah. And related to that is the idea of many comedians will say, you haven't become a real comedian until you've bombed horribly in front of a crowd, until every joke the audience they hated you. By the end of it, they never wanted to see you again. Now you're a real comedian. It's one of those things.
I know. I have so much respect for comedians for that reason, because they have to go through a lot of that to get to where we see them now.
Oh, yeah. And there's no hiding it. People genuinely laugh spontaneely, immediately, or they don't. They either respond or, it's booze and silence are the same for a lot of reasons, is that it's not the response you're looking for. It's not the what you're either inspiring the wrong emotion or no emotion at all, which some people say it's even worse. I'd rather be booed off stage than a crickets.
Right.
Just a pin drop silence. Like, I can feel it. That's physically painful for me just thinking of that kind of silence. That's why I really prefer. I mean, I've done performing. I go to Renaissance fairs and play guitar and whatnot. And that's one of the ways I got over it as well. I'm like, let me just go stand over here where no one's looking at me, and I'm going to sing and play guitar. And if people stop, that's great. And then eventually I would get, a crowd, and I'm like, I'm going on a break, folks. Thanks for coming. Put the money in the hat. I would hit a limit. I had to, and there's exposure therapy, like people afraid of an elevator. Well, first we're going to look at a picture of an elevator. Then we're going to go stand far away from an elevator in a building. Then we're going to go up and push the button, but we're not going to get in. And you get successive approximations, that kind of thing. Long story short, I'm going all over the place today. Well, I think we got the skyscraper thing there. Only a fraction of it is complete. You're overwhelmed that there's so much work to do. So if we contextualize that as your life, it's like you're just beginning a new path, and you're at least thinking of it as, the overwhelming task of building an entire skyscraper, and what you're doing is barely the beginnings of the job. You're just uncovering the windows. That's
Yeah,
it.
because with your own business, it's like I feel confident with the coaching aspect, but I also have to do the sales, the marketing, like all the things.
That's what I don't do. I don't do any of that stuff. I'm trusting you know what I think it is I think I'm not ready maybe to really break out. Like I need more training. Because I spent 20 years in psychology, but I'm new to wizardry. I've only been doing this for like 5 years, and I've only done, I've only got 17 books out there. I've only got 200, coming up on 200 episodes. I feel like I need at least 1,000. Then I'll be a real wizard. Then I'll be ready for public.
Really?
Then I'll be ready for the world. And you know what the good news is that if it takes another 20 years, fuck it, I'll be around. And by then the gray will I'll really look like Gandalf. And then people will, I think most of my life, people say I'm a Pisces. And people have told me, oh, you must be an old soul. And I'm like, I feel old. I feel like I was born 60 years old, and I'm just waiting to get there chronologically. I don't know. We'll see. So
I feel the same way.
yeah. And now I'm fortunate that I'm financially stable enough that I don't have to market myself or die. I'm very fortunate on that for what I'm doing.
That's where I'm at though, because I gave up my corporate income, and
you got to do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's good motivation too. So you're having
for sure
reason to challenge old assumptions, faulty methods, and come up with better ways and overcome things. And the good news is too, like, what is it? People say, oh, it's another goddamn growth experience. Well, they're not fun, but you're better off afterwards. And you'll have stories to tell your clients of like, let me tell you, I've had stage fright and it's a pain in the ass, and here's what I did. It's like the recovering addicts make some of the best drug counselors. I've been there, I've done that. I know when you're lying to me because I did that too. Yeah, and you got to establish that relationship to be able to tell someone, I love you, but you're bullshitting me. Come on. That's a tough thing too. You gotta have a lot of confidence in trusting your gut and reading the signs, and that you've established enough of a relationship with someone they can hear that.
Well, also this dream might relate to one of the earlier ones, because we were talking about how like the old dysfunctional patterns not working for me.
Yeah.
So I just had an epiphany earlier this week, because I used to be the kind of person that doubted myself and didn't believe in myself. And so when an opportunity to grow came up, I would have all these excuses as to why I couldn't do it, why I shouldn't do it. But now I've been through the growth, and with starting my own business, like these opportunities come up and I have no excuses, because my only excuse is fear. But even then it's like, yeah, but I've done scary things before. Mm-hmm. And it's so that, like, I have no excuses anymore. And that in itself is scary and causing me to grow, because it's like, I can't say no to these things anymore. Oh, yeah. And so like, that's been hard, because I was actually, how this epiphany came up is I was explaining to someone last week that I'm actually grieving my old identity. And then I was like, that doesn't even make sense, because I'm a better person now. Why would I be grieving that? It's because I used to be able to hide behind all my limiting beliefs and excuses, and I don't have that anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. And in some ways, it's the freedom of captivity in a way. I don't have to worry about all these things. There's so many things I never have to confront or challenge.
I can just hide, and I don't have to allow myself to be seen.
Exactly. No, for sure. And also, just a slight tangent. Do you have a fear of heights?
Yes.
I think that's why the skyscraper image specifically, you're doing one of the most fearful, you're outside on rickety scaffolding. Don't look down. This is the most terrifying conception you can imagine, is I'm working outside of a skyscraper that isn't even done being built. Is it structurally sound? Who knows? So that's
also, heights are, because I do self-impose things to get myself out of my comfort zone. And all of those things involve heights. Like I've been bungee jumping, I've been skydiving, I've jumped off cliffs. But that's because I'm so afraid of heights. So yeah, I think that's why that came about, because also this career change is self-imposed. So I think that's what the heights represent.
Yeah, definitely. It doesn't have to be a crippling fear of heights. I mean, I get the vertigo of being near an edge and feeling like I don't have good balance. And that's a real risk. If I'm by a very high place with no railing and I lose my balance, I die. There's fear of heights it's not, oh, you just get over it. It's like, no, there's a risk of death. There's a reason humans are afraid of high places.
Yeah, there's like an evolutionary.
No, for sure. We do not have wings. I think if we did, we'd have a whole different experience with it. What was I going to say? So if this were my dream, it would probably be, I would be trapped underwater, or I would be in a cave deep under the earth. So I'm more like a small spaces kind of guy. And I don't trust bungee cords. I'm never doing that in my life. Or paracords. Probably not, but I'm like 300 pounds and those things snap. It happens. So maybe that's my excuse, but I'm like, I'm not taking that chance. Who jumps out of a perfectly good airplane?
I'm just kind of at the point where, like, if this is how I die, this is how I die.
Fair enough. No, that too. And like, there's something to be said for throwing caution to the wind and saying, if I live through this, I will be better off for it. And if I don't, I won't even know it, or I certainly won't regret it.
Plus, if I died bungee jumping, that's kind of a badass way to die. So.
It is, yeah. Did you see him? He was doing a loop-de-loop in that plane and he crashed, but man, he almost made it.
Yeah.
Oh, that reminds me of that guy, Sky King, that stole the plane. And they tried to talk him down.
Yeah.
That's
kind of a badass way. Not that I'm condoning.
No one's encouraging
going out that way.
Yeah. No, but it is. It's true. Well, that's one thing for men is, and women too to a degree, but actually I think it's the opposite. So men are looking for a good reason to die, something worthy of sacrificing themselves for. And I think women more, not universal, your results, your mileage may vary, etc. But women are more looking for a reason to create in that sense. And I think there's a big disconnect in our. That's a whole separate discussion, but it just reminded me of that. But yeah, the idea of like men want a good death, a valorous death. They don't want to die for nothing. It's that counterintuitive thing of like, you accomplish nothing, and then what is it? The Valhalla method of like, into battle, my friend. So we die a good death. What do you want to die old and toothless in your bed? I
bet that's evolutionary too, though.
Very much
based on how we used to live. Yeah.
Yep. You got to get out there and risk death to bring home the food. Literally bring home the bacon from a wild boar. That kind of a thing. Okay. Hey, we're on the final section. We're doing it, and she's comfy over here. Stay right there. Okay. How did this conclude for you back in your childhood home? We almost have a home away situation. Yes, there was 5. But it is a more accurate representation of your actual childhood home. It's really my childhood home this time is what I wrote down. The driveway is steep. It's on a hill. Your sister is borrowing. Now your sister is borrowing your car. Mm-hmm. She backs out and crashes. Is your sister older or younger?
She's older, but we kind of role reversed. So I have older child characteristics and she has younger child characteristics.
She looks to you more as a role model or mentor in some ways?
No, because we're also very disconnected. But crashing my car is actually something she would do because it's just careless and.
Gotcha. Okay. I wrote down earlier, and I don't know why, and I don't know what paper it was on, but you looking to. Oh, it was the high school friend Nikki, that you almost in a way you looked up to her, and what is you didn't phrase it that way. You said it's more like looking into your future. Like, what is my life going to be like next? But there's a mentor role model element to that of like, you could imagine if I do as she does, I will get her results. And if I don't, I'll get different results.
Yeah. And it's also interesting because I'm just now piecing this together. Nikki and my sister were the same age and same grade.
Oh.
And I didn't have that in my sister. So maybe I was looking at Nikki as an older sister.
Yeah, for sure. And a lot of our friendships are that way too. We get, for better or for worse, and for worse would be we recreate the negative dysfunctional patterns and relationships that we had with our family. So a woman was smacked around by her dad. She looks for a violent man, and because it feels comfortable, not because it's good, not because she likes it, not because she doesn't cry or doesn't feel pain, but that's what she knows. And stepping out of that is actually more terrifying than being hit. It's like, but if I leave him, I'll be alone. Yeah, that's scary. That is, but you got to choose what's your pick your poison. Being out of a bad relationship or staying and getting hit once in a while. A lot of women stay. A lot of women say this. I'll put up with it. So, but anyway, and with the friend sister thing. So, unfortunately, not having an older sister as a role model, and specifically, not just that you didn't have an older sister, but that you had one and she failed to be that role model. That, and not that she has any obligation to, but it's nice when it happens. The ideal circumstance is older siblings take care of younger siblings, hold their hand, show them the way. And sometimes you don't get that. I think I was a terrible older brother for my my younger brother, and I don't see him very much. I don't think there's animosity. I don't think he resents me or anything, but we're very different people living different lives.
That's how me and my sister are. Yeah.
So I sorry, brother, if you're out there, if you ever see this episode someday, I regret that too. I regret that I didn't have what it took to do that. I was too self-involved in my own drama and my own life and my own feelings, and probably would have been better off if I had done that. Like, it might have been better for me if I'd been that role model. So you've got this. So now you're home, and why this following the skyscraper thing? So you're thinking about building your own career and the fears you have of being seen and the necessity of being seen. Like, I have to do this scary thing that feels dangerous, feels like I'm at risk of falling off a skyscraper, dangerous, to uncover these windows and show people what I don't want them to see because it's scary. Now you're at home you're back at home and your sister's borrowing your car. So we talked about a car earlier because you had borrowed a car earlier in a previous segment. So it wasn't your car, it was a borrowed car. Now she's borrowing a car. I don't know if you...
And I think there's another analogy in this, because the car that she borrowed in my dream is my actual car. And going back to the original dream about like things that I desired in childhood, when I was little, I always wanted a red convertible. And I now have a red convertible.
Yeah.
And my sister borrowed it and crashed it. And that was part of the reason why I was upset, because it's like I worked so hard to buy this car that I always wanted, and you just wrecked it.
Yeah. How do we make sense of this? She backs out of the car, totals it, and it seems like she doesn't even really care. It's your only car. You're mad at her. Normal, all that stuff. Perfectly understandable response. So what am I trying to conceptualize here? The idea that it's someone else borrowing from you in a disrespectful way. I mean, she's not even sorry. She didn't take care because she didn't care what happened, and the worst came to pass, and she's not even sorry. So why show yourself this? What is it about?
So it could be related, because I'm still holding on to resentment from my corporate job, because it was just like super toxic.
Me too.
So it could be like related to that, because it's like I have moved on and started my own business, but I still have resentments, because ideally what I would have liked to do, and was my master plan, was to start my business while still in that role and build it up to the point where it's like, okay, now I feel safe jumping into it, where it's like I had to just jump head first into the deep end. No joke.
He brings me hair ties to throw. Look at him. I've never had he's a dog. This is a dog in a cat's body. I've never had a cat like this. He plays fetch with hair ties. Sorry, distraction.
That's okay.
Keep focused on you. I can't help it. Where was I going with that? There's so vehicles being a broadly analogy for travel, for a self-contained moving from one place to another, one state of being to another very often. He's just going to keep going. This is your car. So there's maybe a little bit of, even if I brought my insight to my family in a way, the vehicle I provide for them to accomplish something, to go somewhere, is not going to be respected like it and utilized properly. They're going to treat it poorly. They're going to pearls before swine in a kind of way. Am I onto something there? I mean,
maybe. Well, I actually haven't spoken to my mom in almost 3 years
Mm-hmm.
because I tried to have a conversation with her about, and it's not even about the past anymore. It was about how she currently, or at that time, was treating me. And she just was dismissive. She blamed me for all the issues. And we had about like three circular conversations before I had the realization like, this isn't going to change and I can't change her. So I just need to focus on me. So I explained to her, like, I have more healing to do before I can talk to you again. So it may have something to do with like the frustration about like not being heard,
Okay.
even by my own family.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad you said that, and I think that's perfect. And I think I maybe focused it wrong, but I'm happy to be wrong if it gets us where we're going. And I think there is a through line. It's like, I don't know that you're actually, and this may be a small part of it, thinking, what if I could share my insights with my family today? Could I bring them along with me on this journey? And maybe realistically, you're thinking specifically my family, my sister, my mother. You showed yourself your sister maybe because of the example with your mother. They're not in a place where they can appreciate it. They're going to
Yeah.
be disrespectful or dismissive. And what do you do if you disrespect someone's vehicle? You crash it because you don't give a fuck. Or dismiss it of like, you're wrong, your opinion doesn't matter, all the good. So you might be thinking of that. But also, if we go one level up and we're looking at the concept of sharing current insights with a past incarnation of yourself, iconically represented by dysfunctional family members who today would not appreciate this advice, you might be looking at it going, you can't, and that's why I said pearls before swine. It isn't like you think your family's swine, but there's always going to be a type of person who doesn't get you, doesn't care to, not going to treat you well. You can't, we were talking internet trolls. If someone's purpose there is to be an asshole, you can say all the most eternal wisdom of mankind, and
Yeah.
they're going to go, I'm not reading all that. So
Yeah.
fair enough. And so yeah, not to insinuate, oh, your family's just swine compared to you now, but the idea of what is a pig going to do with a pearl? You can't eat it. They don't get. They're just going to roll in the mud. So there's some people that are not going to. Some people who can't appreciate it. But also it's a recognition that you are not your old self anymore. You are not like that. You are no longer inclined to be disrespectful towards this new way of seeing the world or dismissive of it and sweep it under the rug and pretend everything was always fine. You're being more honest with yourself, saying that was not very good. I'm in a much better place now, but I got a long way to go and I'm still struggling. And there's an element of comparing who you are now to who you were then as a validation of where you're going, I think. Something like that.
Well, and that aligns with my epiphany, because I feel like just overall, because usually your self-growth is like watching grass grow, like it's growing,
Yeah.
but you don't really see the day-to-day changes, where it's like all of a sudden having this epiphany, it's like, wow, I'm actually seeing my growth.
Yeah, definitely. Or suddenly you're hit with it of like, you turn around and what wasn't there before is now plainly visible, and it feels sudden, even though it took an entire week for that grass to get tall.
Exactly.
You weren't looking at it, but when you finally did see it, bam, it opens up your eyes to that. So, what am I doing here as well? I don't think this is also limited to family. So we've got your real family. I don't think this is actually about them necessarily, but what they represent in terms of who you were and how they approach things, the dysfunctional ways you're letting go of. But it also generalizes to the world itself of like, is you can promote yourself to the wrong type of people. It's like aiming your commercials at a demographic that doesn't want your services, doesn't believe they're necessary, doesn't reflect upon themselves. This might also be about generically finding the right clientele for your business. So like, I need people who are I'm going to offer them a vehicle for self-improvement through me. And I need to find people who are respectful and not dismissive of what I have to offer. They're going to treat me well in this context. Something like that.
Yeah, no, that makes sense, because especially like life coaching, a lot of people like dismiss it as like woo woo or whatever.
Why don't you just go to a real doctor? What's wrong with you?
Yeah, but like for people like me, because like traditional therapy never worked for me. So that's why I turned to a coach, and it changed my life. So but people like me are a very small demographic because, again, like it's just not the traditional route. I don't know. There's just like various reasons. Also, it's expensive. Not everyone can afford it. But like once you see the value of it, like I have no problem investing money in a coach now, but I understand it is hard to get started. So yeah, it is hard to market something that's a luxury, even though it is developing and growing yourself.
Definitely. I just had a thought here. I just need to fix something real quick in the background. Everything's fine. It was book 13, was it? Because I think we've gone through the dream deal, and I just wanted to make sure I had this ready to go because I'm going to forget all of that. Okay. All right. We'll just leave that there. Okay. I probably should have just done that while you were talking about something else, but sometimes I'm still learning how to do this and embarrassing myself daily. So yeah, if you really want to see me embarrass myself, watch my video game streams as I scream obscenities at a stupid collection of pixels on my screen. That's an amazing lesson too. It's like, why would something that doesn't even exist agitate me so much? Well, because I want something out of the experience and I'm not getting it. I'm frustrating myself by my own goals. Now, does that mean the goals are not worthy? No, I think they are in a way. But certainly there's less at stake. It's a low stakes. It's a video game. If I never played it ever again, my life's not gonna. It'd probably be better. I'd probably scream less. But still, I want to do it. I want to see the story. I want to see how it ends out. I got something I want to get out of the experience. And being stuck in that process is so frustrating. Sometimes you got to let it out and call someone a dirty mother trucker. Well, do you have any elements that we discussed that you wanted to focus in on more, or looking for specific symbol? Okay, why presented in that way? Or do you think we pulled a story out of it that makes sense?
Yeah, because I think we pulled the story out of it that made sense, because honestly, because I told you I just had this dream one night and I woke up and I was like, oh, this will be perfect to analyze. But from that moment up until we started analyzing it, I'm like, this doesn't make any sense at all. It just sounded like this disjointed, crazy, random stuff.
That's
but
why
everything
I love it. I
we
love the
discussed,
mystery.
Yeah, I was like, oh my God, this makes so much sense.
And hopefully, I mean, this is why I believe it's real, is that you didn't choose to tell me a fake story, and I didn't choose to give you a fake answer. This really happened to you. You saw some things and felt some things and brought it out of your subconscious for discussion. And as we're talking about it, I had thoughts about the way things were presented. I gave you those thoughts and you go, oh, wait a minute, let me tell you something. And that happens it blows my mind every single time. I could not promise you this would work ever, and it does every time, almost every time. Unbelievable. That's I love it.
But also, this is kind of how coaching works, because they're like, why did I do this? It doesn't even make sense. But from an outsider, it's like, well, you're doing it because you're self-sabotaging, because you're scared of this, and this is your internal belief about that. And
absolutely, yeah. But also, I love
the same concept.
I think it's very much true. You're using real. The funny thing is, we had psychology long before they ever called it psychology. We used to have, you used to confess to the priest to get things off your chest, and he would tell you, well, here's a better way to live, maybe. Or what if you try these things? What if you go talk to your wife instead of talking to me about your problems? Maybe that's a better idea. Maybe you bring her in and we'll talk together. That's fine. But then, but there's also the thing that I do, which is, I like this better. It's very self-contained, very low stakes. I love me some low stakes. Let me tell you. I screw this up. I'm sorry. What are you going to do? I'm embarrassed, but nobody dies. Also, I'm not telling you how to live. I'm not telling you what you should or shouldn't do. I'm not telling you have any conditions. I'm saying, here's what I see, and hopefully it's useful. And I feel good. I feel good when it is. So I'm glad.
Yeah, this is super useful. It makes a ton of sense.
Very cool.
Like, who knew? Like, even the skyscraper dream, I was like, this is like totally irrelevant.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. The more bizarre, the better. Because I'm like, this means something. There is some connection in there. Some train of thought. Yeah. No, I've definitely been stymied too. There's been things where I'm like, I don't know what that means. And that's one thing I've become more comfortable with as well, of like, getting over the stage fright, the public embarrassment. I've been wrong about so many things so often. I'm like numb to it. It's like you take your hand, you hit it like 6,000 times, and eventually you can't feel it anymore. I'm like, yep, I was wrong again. Moving on. So as long as nobody dies, that's low stakes.
Yeah, very low.
Okay, well, yeah, if you are satisfied with the process, this has been, heading up around 2.5 hours. So I never know how long these things are going to take either.
Yeah, this is amazing. Thank you.
Very cool. Well then, by way of wrapping up, I will say this has been, and I didn't mention it, but you said it. This has been our friend Angie Hawkins from Hawaii. She is an inner glow coach, a public speaker, and author of Running in Slippers. I don't think we spoke too much about why that title. Do you have an answer?
Briefly.
Yeah.
Well, the real story is the introduction of the book, so I will not give that away. But
Sure.
basically, in Hawaii, flip-flops are called slippers, so it basically means running in flip-flops, and I think running in flip-flops is a metaphor for life because it can be fun and playful and adventurous, but it can also be dangerous and painful and scary.
They don't stay on your feet very well. You're more likely to lose a shoe running. Exactly.
You will probably fall and get hurt. Yes.
Yes, exactly. Well, there we go. Okay, so yeah, I'm gonna start over completely now that we've got that. This has been our friend Angie Hawkins, author of Running in Slippers, memoir about dropping social masks and social media facades to connect through vulnerability. And of course, you can find more about that at runninginslippers.com. For my part, would you kindly like, share, and subscribe? Always need more volunteer dreamers. I play video games most days, Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. Pacific. This episode brought to you in part by, I got it on the screen there, ABC Book 13, Dream Psychology by Maurice Nicole out of 1920. All this and more, of course, at BenjaminTheDreamWizard.com. And if you'd head on over to BenjaminTheDreamWizard.locals.com, building a community there attached to my Rumble account, free to join. That is that. Angie, good talk. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it.
Yes, thank you so much. This was amazing.
Good deal. And everybody out there, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.